Hey there. I would like to open this episode by thanking Dakota Biggs, Lynn Weiberg, Joshua Kane, Carsamir, and Warped Pixels. All of these people have supported us on patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, and you can too. If you have done so already, thank you to you as well. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we're talking about The Last Express, which is an adventure game developed by Smoking Car Productions and published by Broderbund for the PC in 1997.
Welcome to November, baby.
Yeah.
It's the coolest month.
It rains a lot here, continuing the Guns N' Roses theme.
Yes, the continuing from life.
You said welcome to, and I thought you were doing a Guns N' Roses thing, so.
Oh, no. Welcome to November.
We got lots of rain.
We got lots of rain.
This is a dumb show.
We're going to play some games this month. I'm going to give you some pain. It's November. Yeah. Can you imagine if these two Guns N' Roses songs had a baby? I think it might go.
Yeah.
A little something. Like, this episode was produced by Jeff Sweet.
Yep, so he endorsed everything we just did there.
Yeah. So I know it sounded like a rough edit, but I just... Nope. I just didn't know how to get out of the joke and decided to move forward.
But Jeff endorsed the joke. In fact, he requested it. So, yeah.
Yep.
This is...
bottom. Your guys do about 3 minutes of Guns N' Roses based nonsense at the beginning of this episode, and I'll throw an extra $5. Bark for me, piggies.
Yes.
And I'm like, Jeff, that doesn't make sense. Piggies don't bark, but we'll do it. Anything for that sweet, sweet $5. And then he said, go, I command you. So.
Yes. Yeah. This is a game that's been on our list for a good long while, actually. Yeah. It's been hovering around at the periphery. People have been asking for it, and Jeff is the one who made it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so thank you, Jeff. Mm-hmm. It is in some way, in many axes, this is the perfect Watch Out for Fireballs game. Mm-hmm. It is interesting, but not necessarily like interesting in a... like how Super Metroid is interesting.
Right.
Not an inarguable classic. Mm-hmm. I also think that this is going to fall into our games as service section.
Yes.
Because, in the pathologic zone, because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily recommend that people play this. Like, I think this is really interesting and cool and everything, but I think you're going to get a lot of that out of listening to this episode. And I found the experience of it kind of like low-key exhausting and irritating a lot of the time.
I reverted to a guide a lot earlier than I might usually, primarily because of the structure of the game. That would be the only way I would recommend doing it. And we'll talk about why. But I don't feel like my experience was diminished like that much for eliminating the frustration of, just failing and not knowing why.
Well, it's weird because I felt like my experience was diminished by that just because it wasn't substituted with anything else. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't end up there's not a whole lot to the game other than just doing the things that the guide would tell you to do. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like optional dialogue and the like, but it didn't feel like this was the closest playing a game for the show felt to watching a Let's Play.
Yeah.
for me because of, ended up having to get out the guide. And that is related to the structure, like a little bit that's just on my own kind of proclivities and stuff. But also this game is not meant to be played once.
No,
like you're not meant to play this game the way that we did it. This is meant to be replayed kind of over and over and over. And we just, did not do that, and we're not going to all inclusive like talk about every bit of dialogue in it.
No.
So it ended up being like a weirdly like really interesting, and there are really tons of cool parts, but kind of unsatisfying as a play experience to me.
Yeah.
For reasons again we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But part of which just was because it made so much sense to rely on a guide, and like you said earlier, than I thought is how I felt it too. Like I was like, oh, I'll just get to the end, and it's like, no, I'm just missing everything, and I can, when I'm getting on the vibe with this game and doing my best to actually see things and play it the way it's intended to be played, I get more things, but not enough to really complete the story because it's a weird fucking game. So yeah, we'll get into it, but it's a strange one. And I think that this is it's at the very least, like for people who are never going to play this anyway, like, it'll be good to hear about it.
Yeah. And unless somebody think like, oh, we're going to take apart this classic thing or whatever. The things that you like about this, I assure you I like about it as well. I fucking love the story to this, with a couple of reservations toward the end. I like the characters broadly in general. I think the writing is really spot on, except where they make like weird and wild concessions to the form or to the fact that like the story has to end somewhere and somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are caveats in there, but like I was having a very good time with this, just soaking in what was there narratively.
Yeah, I'm not going to take this apart. The things that are neat are undeniably neat.
Yes.
Like to me, this feels like a weird, and this is getting ahead, but it's fine. We'll backtrack as well. But it feels to me almost like a Ludum Dare kind of thing, or feeling like an experiment. In game design, which is always has value in and of itself. Like checking to see if you can do something. That's great. That's the big part of art, right? But ultimately, I ended up finding that the answer was no for me on this. Like the checking made sense, but when I think like, why aren't there more games like this? Of course there aren't more games like this. It's really, really stressful and irritating to play because of this caveat that is its selling point. Like, yes, it pulled it off, and that's really admirable and neat. Like, it fills out the neat meter.
Yes.
It's so neat. But it is not super fun. And as much as the story, like I like the story as well. I might be a little cooler on it than you are, but I do like it. I think this is not a good way to tell this story.
Right.
Like weirdly enough. So even the thing that's neat, I think does kind of mess up one of the strengths of it. A little bit, but and this is all stuff we'll get into. I know we got way ahead, but this is a weird game, and this will be a weird episode because like this is not meant to be done the way that we did it, and what we're going to describe is very unlikely to be anyone's experience playing it.
Right.
Unless you just play it with a guide open. So.
So in this game, you play as an American doctor named Robert Calf, who is trying to solve a murder on the Orient Express. In fact, the last run of the Orient Express before the beginning of World War I.
Yes. And the way this takes place is as a first-person adventure game in a very limited environment over, 7 train cars and the roof of some of those train cars. So just a very, very small number of screens, very claustrophobic. And so your job in this game is you navigate the train. Your primary verb in this game is eavesdrop.
Yes.
You are just there to learn mostly. It is an adventure game, but the number of puzzles are, you can count them on one hand, basically. There are almost no puzzles in the game.
Yeah.
It is mostly about overhearing people trying to put together the story in your head and then being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And this kind of there's DNA here that would later go on to like something like walking simulators. Like when I've talked about Gone Home, one of the things I've said about that game is the game is figuring out how much of the story you get. Same thing with her story, right?
Yes.
Like the game of that is how much story do you get? Same thing here.
Yeah.
Like the game is how complete of a picture can you see of the story. It's just whereas the mechanics for accomplishing those things are very different. In Gone Home, it's exploration. In her story, it is paying attention. Here it is largely wandering back and forth, lots of trial and error.
Yes, being in the right place at the right time. Hopefully, maybe. Paying attention is the watchword for this. I remember back way at the beginning of the run of this show, in the Myst episode, I talked about how in Myst, making paying attention into a mechanic is something that I really enjoy and value. That is in full force here.
Except though that there are things that are critical to pay attention to that there are not hints towards.
Right.
Especially towards the kind of back half of the game. Like the first half of the game gives you a lot more hints about where to be. It stops doing that, and out of the things that were places I needed to be, I feel like I could reasonably deduct about half of them.
Right.
So it's paying attention, but it's also just happened to there's a step before paying attention in this game that I think is noise.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think it also, more so than any other adventure game that I've played, maybe accepting some really bad ones that I haven't played. I don't know about Limbo or The Lost or whatever. A problem with adventure games is needing to be on the creator's exact wavelength. You need to be on Jordan Mechner's wavelength for this.
Oh, totally.
Necessarily in order to see what he wants you to see, and also to understand how and where things move because of the kind of weird choppy way that stuff kind of ticks and talks in this.
His wavelength, and then also the wavelength of the genre, which this is a subgenre. This is like a murder mystery, but it's a very specific Agatha Christie style murder mystery, and the historical wavelength, right? So this is going into this, and I have no shame. I learned other stuff instead. I don't know tons about World War I era Europe,
right?
I just don't, and this game is not a good way to learn it. I was making decisions that would only make sense if I knew things that I learned after making the decisions. So
we will. I'll say this because American people will commiserate, and European people, you're just going to have to understand. We didn't really learn about World War I. What we learned about World War I is that we came in, we waited until it was sensible, and we came in and saved all your asses, which is not how it worked.
There was extremely I know the phrase Balkan powder keg.
Yeah.
From education. That is the only thing I learned basically. Yeah. Archduke Ferdinand. Balkan powder keg.
We learned Archduke Ferdinand, but nobody ever taught us about the crumbling Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I just was not taught it, and my instinct, the Gary of a couple of years ago, would have definitely felt shame about going into this, and it's this is a major thing about history. There's only 2 world wars, and I don't know almost anything about half of them. That's ridiculous. And then the Gary now that lets myself off the hook for stuff because life is short and I don't want to spend that much time in self-hate is just I learned other stuff instead. And also I was fucking 14. Why is it my job to autodidact about the history of my country?
Yeah.
Why wasn't this part of
you were 14 when World War I began?
Yeah, I'm actually all of my dark gift propaganda over the years is I'm playing the long game in terms of advertising. It's like the Hardee's Millennium Burger.
A freak like you needs company.
Yeah, exactly. I need company, and I've been working this a long time. But I just don't know very much about this, and should I? Probably fine you in, but at the same time I didn't, and it made the experience of this it reminded me a little bit of when we talked about Neo and how Neo kept presenting characters like you would know them because they just assumed oh yeah, about this stuff, and no, I don't actually. A work of art generally will do some onboarding, and I don't think this game does that very well.
This cribs very, very heavily from Agatha Christie. It's basically right there. It starts with a murder on the Orient Express. That particular story, and a lot of her books, characters are stand-ins for different casts or different countries. So there there's your anarchist Russian, there's your czarist Russian. You have somebody from Hungary, you have an English woman who's dating a French woman, and all of them kind of carry forward this particular stereotype, and understanding the dynamics between all of them, and kind of having that dialogue pop, or filling in some of the blanks, kind of requires a baseline knowledge, not just of those cultures, but like where they were at in the Edwardian era.
Well, and the difference between this and Agatha Christie is that a detective genre story has an explanation for this all built in.
Yes.
You have a point of view character, and you're inside his internal monologue, or her internal monologue. You're listening to them figure this stuff out, and then you have the parlor scene when they explain the thing. This game is a detective story in a way, but does not follow all of the tropes. Like, this gets a lot of comparisons to Agatha Christie, but the actual experience of it is totally different.
You're much more on your own, and like understanding like the main thing on which the plot turns requires understanding the relationship between Germany and Austria, and understanding like specifically what was going on in Serbia and Croatia at the time with the Black Hand. Like, big ask. Yeah.
Really big ask to a video game player, especially in 2019, 20 years after this came out, where we are not used to putting quite as much work into a game to enjoy it. Like, this game does not meet you halfway.
No.
With that stuff. The biggest thing, which people, I just kind of assume people knew this. This has got to be frustrating if you've never heard of this game before. Its big gimmick is it takes place in a kind of real time.
Yeah.
The game, you are just deposited on the train. Time is sped up about 5 times. So every minute in real life, 5 minutes go by in the game. And it is a living world with these characters that have schedules and places they will be, places they will not be, times when they'll be in their cabin, times when they'll be in the dining car.
They will agree to meet each other. Like, you can overhear them making plans.
Yeah. And this is the gimmick of the game. And this is why when we said it's meant to be played multiple times, is that I think the intention is you play through this once just kind of naturally. You miss a lot of stuff, but then you have a better idea for when you play it again. You kind of know where to be. And then you kind of hone in on the good ending through multiple playthroughs, because it was the late 90s CD-ROM game. They wanted you to get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yes. Which makes sense from a business and from a consumer standpoint. It is a less reasonable ask in 2019.
Yes. And just ends up being one of the big tricks with this is, until you have that kind of rubric, or libretto from having beat the game, you do not know what you're seeing, if it does matter, especially in the first half of the game, where I was playing like a snarfy little dialogue goblin, just snarfling up all the dialogue I could, and most of which turned out to be superfluous or non-consequential.
Or if you're playing it like a different adventure game, you could accidentally end up where nothing is happening, and this is the least eventful game in the entire world.
You spend a lot of time wandering the halls, waiting for people to run into people to eavesdrop. Like, my experience of this did involve a lot of walking back and forth up the halls, looking for people to overhear.
Yeah, acting as suspicious as possible.
Yeah, like how a cool detective does. How he just walks back and forth for hours and all day, every day, hoping to overhear people,
looking for the big scoop.
It's exactly like it ends up being, kind of silly.
Part of this design is that, generally a bunch of stuff is accounted for. And so, if you can think like, okay, you run out the scenario in one way, you think, okay, well, where was this person when that was happening? If you go back and do it again, you can usually find them and they are doing something that might shed a little bit more light on what's going on. Like one of the big, climax twists, you can see it coming in advance if you like climb outside the train in the first hour and like look through a window and see a guy making a bomb.
That drove me nuts because I couldn't do anything about it.
I know, right?
So that's one of the big problems with this game, I think, also, right? And you've got this here, but there's really, it's not very much like an adventure game, like in that the lack of puzzles, which I mentioned, but also dialogue. You don't have dialogue choices.
You have dialogue. You have flag checks, is what it is.
Yes. Is something true when you happen to be at a place? If so, your character will say this. Because it's very cinematic. Like, you are not meant to role play this game, really. Like Robert Cath is Robert Cath. Robert Cath has the things he wants. you know, and when you deviate from that path, you are shunted into a bad ending.
Yeah.
Some of which even seem kind of good.
Yeah.
You know, because I wasn't taking into account what Robert Kath wants.
Right.
He's explicitly an other in this. So you can do things like see the anarchist making a bomb on the train you're on, which is cause for concern.
Yep.
You know,
somebody ought to know about it.
I do not want to blow up.
No.
You cannot do anything about that until he's already set the bomb several hours later.
Right. Yeah, you know, you're meant to fail towards success in this. You know, that I think possibly papers over a certain amount of bad signaling. It know, it feels like it is meant to offload a lot of the responsibility for that onto the player to be more thorough and more observant, but short of like creating a timetable of like where people are at in different places, like setting up a Gantt chart for it. I don't know what more I could do.
Well, and they probably, that could be expected on a CD-ROM game in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
Right. You know, there's shades of this that you also see in things like your Niers. You know, the idea that you're not getting the complete story the first time, you go back and then you get the complete story the second time with more knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, that whole construct, which has always kind of driven me nuts in games, has its roots here in a lot of ways. And in this game, at the very least, one of the things I like about it is it does just allow you to rewind.
Yeah. I was hoping that the story would be more about Dr. Kath's magic time egg.
Yeah. What's a magic egg, Cole? Let's not undersell the magic of the egg. It's just a totally different kind of magic.
Well, I mean, no, a different kind. I mean, there are two eggs in play, Gary.
Yeah.
There's the MacGuffin in the story, but then there is just this thing that Robert Kath never comments on, but it is the egg in the corner that you click on to pause time and also rewind it.
Yeah. I wanted that egg to be a more powerful egg.
Yep.
You know, so that egg does allow you to rewind, which is really good. You spend a lot of time in this game, like kind of basically like scrubbing the same situation.
Yeah.
Again, in a way that almost feels like Tacoma.
Tacoma was going to be what I was going to say. Yeah.
A lot of modern game DNA in this, which is part of what makes it so impressive and neat.
Yeah.
You know, on its own. So yeah, in a way that kind of feels Tacoma-esque with just less guidance.
Yeah.
You know, and more consequence because things blow up in this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, spoilers for Tacoma.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine.
So getting into good stuff, right? So you eavesdrop on these characters. You don't do a lot of puzzles. You mostly just have to be in the right place at the right time to collect the right flags. So when you get to this other right place at the right time, you'll say the right thing.
Yes. This also involves a little bit of breaking and entering, either by climbing outside the train or relatively early on, you end up getting a master key, you know, and you have to wait until they're away, and you have to wait until like somebody is standing between you and the conductor. In order to get in and start ransacking their place. And being a personal space invader is fun in video games. Yeah.
One touch I love is this game is largely musicless, other than diegetic music. But when you're trespassing, there's always music. So like you'll just be walking through the train and there's nothing. And then once you know, I'm somewhere I shouldn't be. And I love doing that in games. I think that is incredibly fun.
Yeah.
And you can you're straight up reading diaries.
Yes.
Like you're really getting into it.
I love that. I love the one diary you can go back and check at different intervals as the woman updates it.
Like a real creeper.
Well, yeah, but
you know,
it's a video game, Gary.
No, I know. But you're like, you know, at some point you can overhear them talking about how handsome you are and stuff too. So it kind of comes off as particularly creepy.
A little bit.
In terms of, which, you know, is a good way to segue into kind of tone and writing of this, is that this is, you know, a Indiana Jones-esque almost, like you are an adventurer.
Yeah.
Which I did not initially see, but like, oh, I'm an adventurer.
Yeah, like you know 4 different languages. You're a doctor. You can, you know, punch people's lights out. You can you can defuse bombs. That's not put up on Front Street. It just kind of unfurls as it goes along. It doesn't seem at the beginning for the first half of this. It doesn't seem as pulpy as it's going to get.
Yeah, it ends up becoming very pulpy.
Yeah.
Like you are an adventurer who ran afoul of an Irishman. Is your backstory.
Like, watch out, Itchy. He's Irish.
Yeah, you have the same backstory that Itchy has. That's why you get on the train. Yeah. But this lends, once you get on that vibe, which again, like the game does not do a lot to onboard you with. Like, I did not even really understand why I was getting on the train. You know, once you get on that wavelength, you can kind of appreciate it. And in those terms, it's really good.
Yeah.
The characters are all really well developed. The writing is well above average.
Yes.
The acting is excellent.
Like you barely notice it. Like a game released in the mid 90s. This is basically an FMV game, but the acting and voice acting are both so on point that it feels like it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of flabbergasting. I'm having trouble finding the words for how well it is executed. Yeah, it's not embarrassing. There we go.
Yeah, like, which is how these kind of things generally go. You know, I love Gabriel Knight too.
Yeah,
it's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's endearing in how it's embarrassing, but it's a little embarrassing. This is not embarrassing. Like, this feels like if this were just a movie, which we can talk about. There's like there have been plans for a long time to make it into a movie. Then it would be good. Like, I could see this being like a Channel 11, you know, Agatha Christie style masterpiece theater kind of thing.
Yeah.
Up until the end, with the bad egg, which we'll get into the dumb egg. But I lost my mind. I spit out my drink once I spilled my drink once I found out what the actual MacGuffin in this is.
Yeah,
I died. I died and went to hell. Like, it is.
I'm broadcast live from hell.
Yep, live from Hell Skype. I've logged onto Devil's Hell Skype,
and also known as Skype
podcast. Yes, also known as the Devil's Skype, also known as the Skype.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. You know, up until that point, I'm just like, yeah, this follows, this tracks. This feels like real media.
Yeah, well, and I'm down for it. Like, I don't know, I've got a lot of I've got a lot of appetite for the intrepid, for the period piece, intrepid adventure kind of thing. Like,
I came to really like Robert. Like,
Robert's super charismatic, and he's not like a good guy.
No.
Like,
but it's weird. This is a game that does a thing where your character is smarter than the player. A lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, where Robert knows stuff that, you know, Robert is making assumptions. Robert is saying things in dialogue that did not occur to me, the player. And that is so contrary to video games. Like, typically, like, you know, there's an element of role playing or identification that's not here. Robert is really, really competent and charismatic, even when he's in over his head.
Right.
Like, he ends up making a very good, you know, like Han Solo-esque figure or Indiana Jones-esque figure.
Yeah, and somebody at the start even like a little bit calls attention to that. It's like, you talk a lot for somebody who doesn't know very much. It's like, yeah, cool, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by how kind of with it he was. Like, some of these like weird gambits that he will do about doing the shell game with these objects of desire that people have. And I'm like, man, that's, you know, pretty ballsy. You know?
And I was thinking about something on this as well. You know, this might be a topic for a broader discussion or an essay or something. But like, what's that?
Is it a broader discussion?
A broader, yes, a broader. But no, but like Robert, I think he's entertaining because he falls into like a different stereotype of what an American is. Like an earlier one, like, yeah, we've never been like great. Like, we always had like slaves and stuff, but like the American as depicted among Europeans as like the inventive, naive, always reaching for something more kind of deal. Like that to me stuck out as like, oh, that's just not something you see. And it's not something that could ever be made with a straight face now. And maybe was even a throwback at the time when they made this, but like is entertaining to me to look at like that character archetype.
Yeah. It's and that kind of, you know, we talk about having a hard time like vibing with the wavelength this is on. This was made by a European developer. Right. Yeah. Like this, you know, so that could make sense of this stereotype of an American, these kind of, and, you know, the assumptions about knowledge about European history, you know, could be made because this has kind of a European mindset.
Yeah.
You know, when it is made, you know, so that could kind of explain that.
Yeah.
So as you know, mentioned Broderbund game, you know, so that is kind of piece and piecemeal with them. I think that comes largely also from the auteur behind this, Jordan Mechner,
right?
Who is the Prince of Persia fella?
Yeah, Karateka. Yeah. I don't like saying karateka because it sounds like I'm saying erotica.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you imagine karateka erotica? Or
now I can.
Erotica. Yeah, man. Yeah, let's get with it.
Yeah.
So this dude is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Prince of Persia was mocapped. That's why those animations are so good.
Yeah.
So is Karateka. Mm-hmm. And this is like the logical extension of that.
Yeah. Well, not the logical, the absurd extension of that. Yeah. It's like, hey, like that's kind of my signature look, just making these very cinematic games through the use of rotoscoping, which is taking live action footage or photographs, saying like, okay, these are the important frames. These are the key frames, and we're going to draw over top of this. Like an example of this in media, the one I always go to is That's Why a Scanner Darkly Looks Like That. Mm-hmm. The Keanu Reeves movie from the early 2000s. It's a neat technique, and it gets really impressive results, including here. All of these characters are rendered as these Art Nouveau line drawings that were generated from frames. They had like a proprietary kind of algorithm that found the edges and generated the outlines, and then all of this is hand colored, and they did it for 40,000 frames.
Yeah,
this was never going to be economical.
No. This was a huge flop. Like, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it's so that's the other kind of big trick to this. It's live action, and they're like human looking cartoons, and they look great. Mm-hmm. They talk about, there's a making of you can watch. They talk about choosing actors specifically for having exaggerated facial features. Mm-hmm. So they show up well in this, and they did a great job with it. Yeah. Everyone's face is very charismatic and looks great as a cartoon face.
Yeah. There were very good decisions they made in costuming and makeup as well, in order to get the right stuff to pop on in the photography and in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks great. Like it's a great looking game. It is not a moving cartoon. No. Many times it is switching between just kind of keyframes. There are animations that go through, and the animations are great because, of course, because it's rotoscoped. Specifically, I want to draw attention to the scooting past somebody animation.
That made me so anxious. It's
really good though.
Well, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It is close.
As a simulator of how uncomfortable it is to be in a small space, this works very well. I'm a bit bigger guy, not just extra weight, but like broad of shoulders. I hate being on airplanes because just like I cannot walk, just straight. You have to like scoot sideways down the aisle, and it sucks.
Gallop.
Yeah, and people can't get by me because of my shoulders and stuff like that. And being on here, where every time, excusez-moi, pardon me.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of the soundtrack is just saying "excuse me," yourself and other people.
Yeah,
excuse me. Through this, but it is very cramped. Yeah. It does make it seem like, boy, for the height of luxury, this time you can't stand next to somebody. That's kind of rough stuff.
Yeah.
But it looks so good. Like the same porter scooting past me that scooted past me 1,000 times, is just such a great little piece of animation.
Well, just like they really highlight the expression too, like as they like look, like the way each of them kind of sizes you up or avoids looking at you as they get by, as they're right up in your face. Like it works better than it has any right to, I think. And I think
it works extra well because you maybe have something to hide.
Yeah.
Like you could literally have the super egg in your inventory at the time, or you could have just done something really, illegal at this point. So once you start racking up crimes, that close quarters is really to our purpose. Like having the train master scoot by you, while you've still got crime breath, is actually like a real great little tense moment as well.
Yeah. It's good. And I think that, that has helped this age better than like a straight up FMV probably would have.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Even though these actors who did not go on to do a lot of stuff would have been great in FMV as well. Like I think the performance in this are just generally amazing, as we mentioned, but just if it was FMV, I think that would be really up there as far as good acting in FMVs. So this was a huge flop.
Oh yeah. Like definitionally
flop. Mega flop.
Yeah. Sometimes blamed for helping bring down, having a hand in bringing down computer adventure games in the late 90s. Yeah. Oftentimes, although it was, death by 1,000 cuts on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sold 100,000 units. And went out of print, which is $1 million less than it needed to make a profit.
Right.
The game cost $6 million to make.
Mm-hmm. Ridiculous budget for a PC game at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blame game stuff. A lot of things are blamed, based on why this failed. But Broderbund's marketing team quit a week before the game came out.
The entire team. A lot of the word of mouth were executives at Broderbund just telling. In the Wikipedia, it talks about how they're like word of mouth from the executives, and I'm just imagining them like on the street corner, just like, psst, hey, psst, Last Express, psst. Walking around with button pins, asking about the Last Express.
Yeah, it's I didn't know exactly what that meant, but there was like no marketing for it. Mm-hmm. Even so much so that the company ended up going under at this point, and that is what sank a PlayStation 1 port, which was done or nearly done. Yeah. Of this, which might have gone well. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Bigger audience.
Yeah, bigger install base at the time, at the very least.
Yeah. So critical reception on this, positive. Lots of sugar for the game's presentation. Like, it's hard to think of anything that was quite like this, quite this ambitious. And, CD-ROM games oftentimes are graded on that kind of ambition. But there was also criticism for the real-time elements, the game parts of it. Like, this is actually like really, really hard. It's really impenetrable, and it requires a lot of you. So it's mostly in line, I think, with what we have talked about and what we will talk about.
Yeah. Yep, I am very much like a critic of the time. Just call me Sushi X.
That was you?
That was me.
Oh.
Yep, I was Sushi. I was not Sushi X.
No. I was 12.
Yeah, 12X. So shortly after this came out, Smoking Car Productions and Broderbund both closed down. Mm-hmm. So this never got a proper follow-up. The game hints at this, like, boy, is it a thread that your character is part of some kind of secret society or has like a super Mason ring or something like that in this that doesn't go anywhere? But the idea of the continuing adventures of Robert Kath set up as kind of an Indiana Jones like figure was definitely intentional.
Yes.
In this.
Yeah. And Jordan Mechner's career would take an interesting trajectory after this. He really, as far as games go, like he consulted a lot and worked on Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and then, went off to like write screenplays and stuff like that. So not necessarily, probably not necessarily like a Kickstarter follow up to this. And Jordan Mechner, he's got other stuff he's working on.
Yeah. Well, and Sands of Time actually, again, makes a nice follow because of the rewind function, which you can do in this game as well as that. Even though it's an action game, so it's very different. One of the screenplays he wrote was for a prequel movie called The Red Serpent, but that was shelved because he started working on Sands of Time. So that never came about. And in 2010, Paul Verhoeven was not quite confirmed, but like really hinted.
He described he opened his mouth. This episode of the show came out, but every time the Last Express was spoken, it just turned into static.
Yeah, exactly. Atlanta Falcons.
But he offered a description like it's a video game adaptation, kind of an Indiana Jones thing. World War I took place on a train, etc. Like, okay, we got you, buddy. But the last anybody heard of that, it was 2011, so it's probably dead.
Yeah, it could work. I think it would still, maybe not. I mean, Paul Verhoeven, I don't know. It's going to be a lot more punching. We didn't really mention it, but there are action scenes in this game, and they're atrocious.
Yeah, I forgot to put those in the generalities because
they suck.
They're not good.
Yeah,
proto QTEs.
Yep. It'd be all that.
Yeah.
In Verhoeven's world. It'd just be him punching the train.
Be a weird
thing. Immediately punches it off the tracks.
I love Paul Verhoeven. He makes very good movies, but I don't know that he would be the right fit for this.
Yeah. I mean, I like RoboCop. It's just not very Agatha Christie-like.
Agatha Christie's RoboPoro.
Yeah. RoboPoro. No. Solve the mystery of what this juice is that comes out of RoboCop that the other cops eat sometimes. It's still my favorite thing about RoboCop. Well, it's like baby food. Just somebody like using the spigot on RoboCop to get some of that stuff. It's amazing. Like it came from my body. Like the idea that RoboCop dispenses like a red applesauce that you can eat is such an underrated part of RoboCop lore. I mean, we got to do a RoboCop episode on Abject Suffering or something, just so we can talk about the RoboCop applesauce.
Oh, of course.
Like, just for a whole half hour.
Stop burning gas. What is it? Stop burning.
What do you think it tastes like? Would you pay to taste it?
Do you agree that the police should play a role in making sure that the underprivileged have nutrients? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, but do you have to eat it from the cop? Like that's. I mean,
it's only polite.
Yeah, that's really, really fucked up. If like the cop just like comes up and does like a cop crime and then immediately starts spraying apple juice for the children, like out of his eye or whatever.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, I just I think I would pay to try the apple juice that came out of RoboCop. Like you wouldn't have to pay me. I think and it wouldn't be a lot, but if someone was just like, "Hey, RoboCop tasting $4.99," I'd probably be like, okay.
if he was standing at a cart in a Costco, you know.
Yeah, or he shows up at the farmer's market. Like, I think I'd probably sidle on up to RoboCop at that point.
Fresh squeeze RoboCop.
Yeah, I think I would do some homegrown organic RoboCop juice.
Yeah,
you know, God, it makes me want to rewatch the movie. None of the action, none of the pathos makes me want to rewatch it. Just that fucking applesauce, dude. Dying, like I gotta get in on that.
Yeah,
losing my mind. I'm so in the weeds on RoboCop's apple juice. It's killing me.
So this game was re-released on modern systems. Interplay got a hold of the license. They put out The Last Express Gold for PC and mobile. They did some interface improvements. They added a hint system. This is the version that I played. Like, this is what you get on Steam.
I played the GOG version.
Oh.
So I played the OG, the original version.
Yeah.
So probably could have used that hint system, but just because I can have multiple windows open. Yeah. I just used my phone as my hint system. But there are multiple ways to play. That is probably the better way to play it.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Let's do. So we have this opening, high drama, tense music. We have this man who we're going to later learn is Tyler Whitney. He is boarding the Orient Express, and he's kind of like cagily looking around. There, police guards. I guess because this parish the gendarme. And the train takes off. Without the person that he was looking for. And the person that he was looking for, pulls up next to the train on a motorcycle out in a little prairie, and he hops on board without a ticket, waving her off, waving off the motorcycle driver.
Yep. Who is a lady. It's one of those like Rocketeer era motorcycles. This is all very pulp, and things are going to slow way down here. I mean, we get to the mystery part, but this kind of like action thing doesn't show up for a while.
It's a good introduction for Robert Kath, though. I like that quite a bit as setting the tone. It's also worth noting this takes place in late July 1914, after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, but before the actual declaration of war.
Yeah. So you had to find this out. You get this this scroll or what have you. You're Robert Kath. You've just boarded the Orient Express to answer an urgent summons from your old friend Tyler Whitney. Now you need to find him. And again, just in the right from moment one, in terms of this game kind of expecting more from you, most of the backstory that is actually in the game is in your inventory, like similar to like a deja vu or what have you. You have to check yourself and then read your things to even get things that would be part of a setup, an opening cutscene, of games of the time or even now. Yeah.
In reading about this, there were materials in the box that gave more backstory, and there was a website at the time as well. How novel it was that gave a little bit of this, but as far as the game goes, you look in Kath's pockets, you find a clipping about a policeman who was murdered in Belfast, and the authorities are looking for somebody who matches Robert Kath's description. And also there is a telegram from someone in New Orleans sending you on this job. This is a telegram sent from Tyler Whitney to Robert Kath, talking about a botched job in Cuba. So they've been working together for a long time.
Yep. So you need to find your buddy, Tyler. You check in with the conductor. Which sleeping compartment is Tyler Whitney's? It's compartment 1. You're gonna spend a lot of time in these couple hallways here. One thing that I think is realistic that I find kind of a pain in this is keeping the compartments separate.
Yeah.
Like you spend a lot of time kind of doing a mist interface, going up and down this hallway and turning right. And then if you, if you're on the wrong compartment, it's multiple clicks and little animation transitions.
Yeah.
To get to the next one.
But don't click too fast because that will auto move you to the end of the line.
Yes. I want like real Last Express where you're actually just moving around in 3D.
Yes.
Like real Mist.
Yeah. I mean, just because like the slideshow, a lot of things look the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem with it. Like you can look and they have numbers on the doors, but so you when you go to compartment 1, you knock, no one answers. You open the door and your friend is dead.
Yes. Big scare reveal.
Yeah, big scare reveal. He is a Southern gentleman. When we, there's some voiceover that we get with the telegram, but this Southern gentleman is dead. He's
all bloodied. His face is contorted in terror. He's obviously just been brutally murdered.
God, what murdered him? Now, like even thinking about this part now that I know what killed him is so funny. I didn't think about the beginning of this and how like sad and scary it is, and then when you actually find out, like, oh, okay, all right. So dumb.
I mean, can we just say like natural causes on the?
We'll get to it because I want to be able. I really want to dine on the moment.
But I was playing as Robert Cathan, the character, so the actual cause of death is kind of like fucking crazy. Can we just say natural causes?
Yeah, we can say natural causes. He has some marks on his face.
Right.
That is thing. We also find in terms of clues, we find a scarf on the floor, very brightly colored. It has a W on it. Kath smells it because of detective pervert reasons.
Yeah, it's a way to say like, oh, this is a woman's scarf. It has perfume on it.
Yeah, and a way to smell a real nice lady smell.
Well, yeah.
For later thinking, There's also like a chest with like a velvet cutout where obviously something big was in there with a smaller little part.
Yes.
He was smuggling an R-Type with an option.
he was smuggling a Ranger X.
Yeah, and an Exo suit or an Exo 1.
Yeah, not that far off.
Yeah, exactly.
But and so this kind of starts a clock. There are lots and lots of ways to fail here.
Yes, in a way that kind of falls off as the game goes on.
Yes,
it's not a new observation to look at how like games put a lot of their work in their opening sequences. Like a real obvious comparison would be Indigo Prophecy.
Yep.
Which that is the most, you're dealing with a similar situation and it's the most detailed section of the game. Same thing here. Like this early stretch, there's a lot of cool ways to die and there's a lot of tension. Yeah. And a lot of that I found drained out of the game, other than like what kind of felt like cheap ways to add it. Like the like the other explosion that happens, the non-bomb explosion.
Right.
But here it's like, oh shit, like there is a sense of real time limit and tension here that is really cool because somebody is gonna like, I'm bloody and there's a guy. So you can call the emergency brake and just try to get authorities like you might in real life. But then you realize like, oh, like first of all, I'm incredibly suspicious. I'm wanted for running afoul of an Irishman, and I don't have a ticket.
Right.
And when you die in this game, you get you flash over to another character who writes a diary.
Yes.
And we get her diary entry of you being taken off, and it's really great because they're from her limited perspective.
Yes.
We never get into Robert Kath's head basically at all in this game, but we do get into her head, and just like we had to make a stop because an American without a ticket was taken off. It's very limited point of view.
Yes. And I like that. I like that it keeps the mystery there. But you can also get caught, you can get caught with blood on your jacket from having moved the body. Like you can pick them up and you have to. So like if you step out into the hallway, say on accident, somebody will say like, hey, all right, something is terribly wrong. It invites suspicion. You cannot stand up to suspicion or scrutiny. Same thing. You are caught for the murder. A train worker can walk in on you with the body.
Yep.
And like, you know, like they'll come up and knock. You can buy yourself time. This is real don't shit your pants kind of stuff. You can buy yourself time by talking to them, by activating a little speech bubble, saying like, hey, I'm Tyler Whitney. And he's got this message for you, like, hey, Eric Schmidt is waiting for you. And like, all right, well, I'll be right there after I deal with something. But that kind of sets up, you're going to be here and you are assuming his identity, because all anybody really knows is that there's an American on board.
Yeah. And all Americans look the same.
Yes.
So there's two ways you can get rid of the body, one of which causes a complication later, but there are two ways you can do it. The correct thing is to hide it temporarily. Yeah. Because you wouldn't necessarily know this, but right now the train is over dry land. Later you can throw it out a window into a river. And that's the correct way. You can actually throw it out the window now. Right. And that also works, but it causes another scene later. Yeah.
Like somebody finds the body, information travels faster than a train does. And so at the next stop, the French authorities will get on.
Which is really cool that you can still think your way out of that. Like there are a bunch of fail states in this game that are just like shit, you know, I have to restart. But there are things like this where this is a mistake to throw, because I threw the body out here. Just thinking like, okay, I got to get rid of it. The French authorities came up and I was able to like, oh, I'm going to go hide outside of the train. During this, which is when I saw the bomb and then couldn't tell the authorities about the bomb or anyone about the bomb and lost my mind. Yeah. But it is cool that you can do that. It's not a failure. This is not a binary choice. Yeah. Later, the possibility spaces constrict to where it's like do or die, basically.
Yes. Something that complicates the kind of optimal solution of temporarily hiding the body until you can throw it out at an opportune time is like the interface is not necessarily the best. In terms of that, like, you know, the series of clicks that you have to do to, you know, expose the bed, you know, to lift up the seat and then get Whitney's body onto it, not necessarily discoverable. And oftentimes you can just like undo your work. The game, it seems like, is consciously trying to like stop you from tying him to from tying Whitney's body to the bed. And hiding it. So, yeah.
That is also very much like a counterintuitive thing to do. Like it's pretty dark, like just leaving this corpse around
and then sleeping there later.
Yeah, exactly. Like just, you know, no need to, no need to make my bed. I'll sleep on the corpse. Like it's, you know, it's pretty messed up, but that is the optimal thing. You also have to throw out your jacket and put on Tyler's jacket. We look through his suitcase and we find this strange scroll. It's got a Russian language poem on it and a bunch of illustrations. This turns out to be a riddle key. I'll learn about this later.
Yes. And Kathy can speak many different languages.
But not all of them, which I love.
I love that so much.
That's such a clever thing. Yeah. And you get a lot of people not knowing that you can speak their language, talking about you and not knowing that you understand. Yep. Is a really clever conceit that is used really well in this game.
Yeah. Kath can speak Russian, but he cannot read Cyrillic. Getting this translated will be important later on. And there are only two languages that he doesn't understand. Importantly, he does not understand Serbo-Croatian. He does not understand it's Arabic, but weirdly, the person who speaks Arabic is explicitly from Persia. So should be speaking Farsi there, buddy.
Yep. Oh, well. Yep. Demerits Mechner. So we learn about that character, who does not play a very big part in the plot.
No.
One of the things I like about this is that there are a couple of characters that you can spend a lot of time with, but actually are not important. Like there are some false leads, which makes all of the time I spent eavesdropping on that French family like annoying to me, not just least of which because their kid is really annoying, but also Francois. I want to crack sweat Francois over my fucking knee. Francois has got to go. This kid needs to go out the window or get tied to the bottom of a bed until I can get over a river. So we learn about the character from Persia. They have brought a harem on board. We can run into some members of that, but don't end up being critical to the plot, at least in my articulation.
They end up being very convenient cover for when you need to get into people's compartments while the conductor is there. You just knock on the door and they poke out.
Yeah. We also see a woman in red leaving her room. as we're on our way to meet Air Smith. You can talk to her. This is Anna Wolf. And you try to show her the scarf, and she says it's not hers, even though it does have a W on it, and she does dress in very bright clothing.
Yes. Anna Wolf is going to be very important here.
Yep. She's called that because she keeps a wolf with her. Not a joke. It's like how Sniper Wolf got her name. Yes. It's very similar. They're related. Yeah. So we go to the restaurant car.
Yeah, because somebody's expecting us. Air August Schmidt.
Yep. Great actor.
I love this.
Big Mosley energy. Like everyone in these games has to have a Mosley. And he gets down to business asking if you have the gold. And again, when I talk about the character having to be smarter than I am, like, I would just be like, nope. But he's just like,
that wasn't part of the deal.
Coy. Yeah, he plays it really coy.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you have the gold? He's like, do you have the merchandise? He knows to say that. Yeah. He says, well, they'll be put on the train in Munich, and you stall for time. You say, well, I'm not going to show you the gold until you can show me the merchandise.
Right.
You don't know you have no idea what this is at this point. Your character is just bluffing.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. Again, but also is like, well, I didn't know I was going to say that.
Yeah. It's intrigue. Like, I don't know. I will be a sucker for a story with intrigue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also in the lounge, we can meet a Russian man named Alexei. This is our young anarchist. You ask him to translate the scroll. He says it's a fairy tale about something called the Firebird, but he does not want to talk about that. He says these stories are actually oppressive. Like, the reason these fairy tales are there to oppress people. He is a young socialist.
Yes. It's like, you're not wrong, but you're an asshole. So
yeah, exactly. Like, that I need to solve this incredibly dumb mystery, right?
We're just like two humans talking here. Like, you don't need to fucking do this, man.
Well, he should have been like, yeah, you don't want to actually solve the mystery because what happens will hurt you. Yeah. It's incredibly dangerous. Like, I actually guess this fairy tale is very oppressive. Yeah. Oppressive in the way that Starscream is oppressive. So you go back to Whitney's compartment here, and the conductor says His Excellency wishes to see you. You can actually pick up a manifest.
Yes. Yeah.
Somewhere along the way that has, you can pick up things from the porters when they leave them at their stations, and you can kind of take a look and see everyone who's going to be riding on the train. Yeah. So you can know that there is His Excellency. And it is the Time King Kronos.
Yeah. Kronos, he has a private car attached to the back of the Orient Express, so ooh la la. And you go back and talk to him. Kronos is a real mysterious figure. Don't know what actual position of nobility he has to be called His Excellency or where his resources come from. It's kind of impossible to figure out where he physically comes from as well.
Yeah,
but good.
I choose to believe that he is a Nyarlathotep.
Okay,
figure because he knows everything
as good as any. Like, he knows that you are not who you pretend to be. You know, he calls you by your real name, Kath. Says names have power. And he wants to know, like, hey, can you complete the deal that I had with Whitney? Like, okay, so I've got two people who expect things of me now, and I am having to step into somebody's shoes, and I don't know where they were walking to.
Yeah. So you're like, I can't do that. And he goes, well, I'm going to be leaving at Vienna. So you have until then, hopefully I'll see you again, but if not. Yeah. If Kronos out.
Yeah. If not, Kronos out. And also my stoic bodyguard, Kahina, will come and slit your fucking throat.
Yeah. So. Kahina's, he's got a heavy.
Yes.
With him. So you go back to your compartment. We get another knock on the door, and we're basically going back to our compartment because we have nothing else better to do.
Right.
Like, this is the plot just getting kind of poured into our ear. So a Serbian man named Milos is waiting for you.
Yes.
He sees the blood stain. He's like, you're not Tyler Whitney. He sees the blood stain, and he thinks that you have hurt Tyler Whitney. He's like, Tyler Whitney was a friend. He starts a fight with you. So this introduces our fighting mechanics of this, which are like kind of a QTE punch-out thing almost. Like, you can respond and click on the enemy after you do certain actions, but you just have to guess what those actions are. These suck so bad. There's a way to bypass them, which I looked up online, where you go online and you like click the time, your clock back.
You pause and unpause a certain number of times and you get through. It's kind of like how you beat the dragon in Mega Man 1.
Yes. Yeah. Yep, exactly. So it's 4 times. That's how I did for all the fights. Because I was like, I am not fucking here for this. This is dumb as hell.
Yeah. It's I like admirable that they want to bring in some kind of variety, but maybe have play tested it some.
Yeah. Yep. And that's adventure games.
Yes.
Right. Like that happens a lot. You dodge and disarm him. And we talk to him as like, hey, I didn't kill him, so you could get down to dialogue. Mm-hmm. We find out Milos is a member of the Black Hand, which is like a Serbian independence front.
It's like the one, like the Black Hand was the conspiracy that assassinated Franz Ferdinand.
Yep. He knows. He knows your name, like because Tyler talked about you.
Yeah.
And this is how we learn about the gold. He wants to know where the gold went because they need that. Mm-hmm. Gold. You can kind of start putting 2 and 2 together there.
Yep. They need that gold because it is going to be used to exchange for something that is very valuable to them. So now you are in hock to 3 different, very dangerous people. Mm-hmm. Schmidt, not so obviously, but he has powers, political powers.
Yeah, he's kind of dangerous. He leaves. So now we know the pressures we're under. The conductors are going to make everyone's bed, which I think is very cute. Mm-hmm. But you just have to stop and tell them no bed service.
Yep. Put out the do not disturb sign.
Yeah. Which I did anyway, even though the body was not in there, just because I didn't want them to see the blood.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have to do that if you don't have the body on board, but
I don't know.
Body on board. something, Burt Ward. Moving on to chapter 2.
Yes. Leaving Epernay and heading to Strasbourg. This is not a very eventful chapter. It's more getting more information about the other passengers. The title card here, you've boldly taken on your dead friend Tyler's identity to unmask his murderer and evade the police. Don't count on sleeping too well tonight. So the activity on the train follows kind of a logical progression. Things are going to get more active when you're near different stops that it's going to make, and more active around like meal times as well. Mm-hmm. So it was like first service, second service, etc. But things are winding down. And you can go do some eavesdropping. Like you can read. I love this. You're loving this, aren't you, Cole? The newspaper that updates every day with more period accurate news.
Yep.
Yep.
This game recreates the thrill of being in a local library microfiche department.
It was an interesting time. Like I went and read all this.
It's all right.
Fuck you, Gary. I love it. You're not going to shame me for liking the goddamn news.
The news. The news of Strasbourg in 1914. It is good ephemera.
Yeah.
The actual relevant information is generally in the headline for this game, but it does give you some, this is like a verisimilitude kind of nod to me. Like this makes it, feel more real, but is not necessarily very much in the way of information that helps you with the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a weird way. Like
I'm fine with that.
I am fine with it, even though, but I mean, maybe I'm not. Like I'm fine with it if in a game where I feel like the onboarding is happening elsewhere. And then I want this as a bonus. But there's a little bit of some of the text in this game that felt like it was so mirrored to reality, and that something that felt real but was not accurate that actually gave direction would have been stronger.
Yeah.
So
I can see wanting it. I can see the ephemera like wanting it to be more integrated. I can see that.
Yeah. But I guess that was really just my big thing. And that came up with newspapers. It also comes up a little bit with the diary as well, which is like largely superfluous. Like those two characters are not really a part of the story. They're interesting. They're good characters. I like that they're well developed. I think that what I would have preferred would be to have both.
Yeah.
To have that ephemera and then also have a little bit more direction and kind of keyed in stuff to the story.
Yeah. So. I'm willing to admit that my affection for the newspaper that updates is just a symptom of my own particular psychosis. That's fine.
Yeah. Whereas I am more of a fallout for hate newspapers, like the that famous image.
Yes.
So this is where you can properly throw out the body. If you happen to be going over a bridge, you can toss it at this point.
Yeah.
So in these notes, do you not have the thing that happens if you don't, or if you put through that thing?
No, yeah, I don't, because I had the guide, or I had the universal hint system for this to know what to do. Yeah. So I don't know what happens if you don't.
I can briefly mention that as just a sentence. So police board, the train. Which is really great. It's incredibly intense. They're making their way down the hallway, one room at a time, checking everybody. So you have to go wait outside the window. At this point so they check your room and find it empty. They don't see the blood stain. You never clean the blood stain.
Yeah.
They just don't happen to notice it. And then they're arguing with the porters like, hey, your manifest, you're supposed to have 24 people on the train. You only have 23. Yeah. And they say like, we can't stop any longer. We have to go.
Right. Yeah. You're small town cops. We answer
we're
to
the Orient Express.
Right. Yeah.
We don't even do customs.
Yeah. We're a transnational entity. Like we can buy and sell you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, it's really cool that it's not, doing the body disposal thing wrong is not an instant end state.
Love that. Yeah.
Good scene.
You can also you can meet Anna in the lounge, but she doesn't really, say anything to you.
There's romantic tension there. Is like the idea is supposed to be that she's kind of a femme fatale and you're kind of a horny detective.
Yeah,
a little bit. Like, of course you're looking at Anna because she's a hottie. Basically everyone wants to fuck Anna. The young French boy. Like she gives a puberty. She provides a puberty to the train. One puberty happens on the Orient Express.
He's blowing through that whistle, and then just the tone just drops. Like
Agatha Christie's puberty on the Orient Express.
But there's a cool little sequence. You go to bed and you wake up at about 3:40 in the morning, and you're in a dream, and things don't really work. Like you step out into the hallway, and you try to walk in any given direction, but you're not actually moving. Like it does the refresh, but it doesn't actually like move you one down. Yeah, which is very good and very cool.
And the conductor is down at the other end of this. Juggling his head.
You have to press a button a certain number of times to make that happen.
Oh yeah. Which I looked up because it's a famous part of the game. You click this little button to get this little Easter egg to get this. It's really great.
Yeah.
Looking. The Twin Peaks-esque like this suit burns better that is happening is you seeing Tyler. He's on your bed, still dead. He sits up, pulls an egg from his mouth. And hands it and goes, why don't you make it sing? In his seductive Southern voice.
Yeah.
And that is the nightmare you have.
Yeah. And of course, because a man pulled an egg out of his mouth, you can't go back to sleep.
Exactly. Right. That's too much.
So you walk the halls, in the middle of the night here, and you actually hear a violin. It's coming from Anna Wolf's compartment because she is a famous violinist and also a very inconsiderate one playing the violin at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And when you come in, she pulls her gun on you. She knows that you're not Tyler Whitney. At this point, she is prime suspect, for killing Tyler.
Right.
And you think they're like, people get guns pulled on them a lot in this game as if everything would be just fine if they shot it. Nobody ever calls anyone's bluff. It's you're going to get...
They're not in the plane. Like, it's not going to decompress.
Yeah. No. I mean, like, but the porters might hear it.
Yeah,
like, it's not like, like, I don't know. I feel like that's a good reason to stop the train and get the police.
I misunderstood. I didn't mean to jump on your dick about that. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I didn't think it would depressurize. I've been on a train. I was just kind of, guns are loud.
Yeah.
It's like pre-silencer or what have you. So she pulls a gun on you, and I just kept expecting Kath to call someone's bluff. And be like, yeah, you do that, the porters are going to be all over you, politely asking you to get arrested. So excuse me, madame. Arrested, por favor.
Into the jail, por favor.
Yeah, into the jail, merci. Merci beaucoup, into the jail. So you get interrupted at this point, though.
Right. By a struggle. Like you hear somebody yelling down the compartment. You run down to the compartment where the old Russian man is. So this is kind of the representative of Tsarist Russia. If Alexei is the revolutionary Russia, old guy. He's got his granddaughter Tatiana here, and he's having like a fit. And he thinks that you're here to kill him. Kind of like having a seizure or woke up in a bad nightmare or something like that. And Kath, this is the first time I realized he was a doctor.
Me too.
He manages to...
He's like, I'm a doctor. No, you're not. You're going to kill this guy. What are you doing?
Catch me if you can.
I'm a doctor. I'm like, oh, you can just say that?
Yeah.
Fuck. Like, I guess I've never done it, but I suppose I could just start saying that whenever I want access to a convulsing man.
I mean, you're a white dude. Like, if you just like carry a clipboard and say I'm a doctor, you can get places and nobody will throw you out of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But you subdue him.
Mm-hmm.
You give Tatiana some herbs for tea.
You need to shock him every 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Put 8 little ounces of this into his eyeball every 4 hours.
Yeah.
And you can hear, as you leave, you can hear Anna talking to Tatiana in the room, asking her to keep something safe. And you're like, well, I know that there's a big something-shaped hole in this briefcase. Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah.
So this moves on to chapter 3 when you arrive in Munich. The title card, it's morning on the Orient Express and the passengers are up and about. Take advantage and learn as much as you can before the train arrives in Munich.
Yes. So you can go around and you can stop and talk with Milos. He's got these other Serbian people on board with him. He's got these co-conspirators. These are some of the only people that you cannot understand when they are talking. And Milos is a little bit open with you. He's talking about the cause, talking about the revolution. Says a unity or death. And, Kath, he jokes that off, saying like, oh, is that Harvard's motto or the post office?
Yeah.
And he says like, hey, even Tyler has taken this oath. And the plan was to get one over on Schmidt, in order to get what Schmidt was going to provide.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Schmidt wanted whatever gold the Firebird was worth. The Firebird is the thing.
Yes.
The egg, the thing we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Also, astute listeners will know that was also the name of the fable.
Yes.
That we have. In exchange for something that the Black Hand would need, Kath says, hey, that's actually coming on in Vienna. That's when he's loading things on. So again, stalling for time.
Mm-hmm.
Here, 2 conductors talking about the master key being missing.
Yeah.
It was lost in the struggle with the Count. They suspect maybe the American has it, but they never actually act on their suspicions.
Right.
Even though you are the most suspicious motherfucker that ever lived.
Yep.
So you are like, okay, well, I'll have to find that. But on your way, you can go to the dining car with Tatiana because you're like, hey, here's a Russian who owes me a favor.
Mm-hmm.
And get her to translate the Firebird story.
Yeah, she won't be a fucking prick about it like her anarchist boyfriend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like, hey, I will write this out for you. And you're going to find it in your car later on. But she's really grateful for the help that you gave, which makes sense. It's how a human would react. And you can eavesdrop. She excuses herself to go talk with Alexei, who just arrived, and she blames the Count Obolesky's fit on something that Alexei said to him, and he is extremely condescending to her, and we get a little bit of their background.
Yeah, he is for somebody who's like politics. I'm generally more sympathetic to than other people in this game.
He's like the hippie boyfriend that Jenny has in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Like he's such a prick. Like there's a part where I don't know if it's in this conversation or in other conversations he's having with Tatiana, where he's like, if you knew all the things your grandfather is responsible for, you'd take a knife and gut him. Yeah. And it was like, oh boy, that charm.
Yeah.
Dial back the charm, Alexei. Jeez.
Yeah. Don't talk so smooth. It'll fall right off the plate.
Yeah. Gonna make all the ladies in this train pregnant. So now that we know the Firebird, we know that phrase.
Right.
We learned that. Then we can go and get into Kronos's car. They wouldn't let you in if you don't have something to say. But now when you knock, you can be like, I want to talk about the Firebird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're just here to do it again to get information.
To fish. Yeah.
Yeah, just to fish.
Yeah.
And he asks if you have it, and you say, "Why? I want to ask some questions. Why would somebody have killed Whitney for it?"
Mm-hmm.
And then he realizes like, oh, you don't have it.
Yeah.
Like Kronos is good in this game as far as being like competent the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically, like I like the way that this character articulates as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit because he's not an idiot.
No, he's never taken.
Yes.
And when he is taken, it is because there is no other option but for him to let it happen.
You had to outmaneuver him.
Yeah.
Like socially, which is really cool.
Love it. But he points out, like, oh, like what you gave the Russian there was Datura, this hallucinogen, and he takes it too. And then he goes and like, hey, all you have for me are questions. So I'm like, out of here. I'm gonna go trip later, bud.
Yeah. Later, bro. Time for me to tune in, tone out, drop, dude. Yeah. But you can eavesdrop at this point where he's talking to his bodyguard, and he says the Austrian woman has the Firebird.
Right.
But Kahina can't search Anna's compartment because she has that dog.
Yep. You can hear this dog if you're walking up and down the train cars.
Constantly barking and growling.
Yeah.
It turns out to be a good dog, but does not seem like it will be a good dog at first.
Well, he's all pent up,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this dog is very mistreated.
Yeah. Yeah. So we know, like, okay, so she has it. That's probably what she gave to Tatiana, and we know that Kahina is going to be going, looking for an excuse or a way to get in there.
Yeah.
So
Kronos even says, "I will make an excuse for you.
Yes.
Like I will do something," and he does.
And just again going back to the base mechanics of this, knowing motivations, knowing desires, and looking for knowing motive and looking for opportunity is what you're doing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. You can go up to the lounge. There's a book here, The Sick Man of Europe, which my secondary research says it's how people used to refer to the Ottoman Empire. And like Austria and Hungary, the Austria-Hungary Empire in general, the sick man of Europe, how it was always kind of ready to topple over at any given time. But this, tells a pretty important story describing the Sultan in the Ottoman Empire who received an egg, an egg trinket from the Tsar containing a portrait of this woman that he was in love with. However, he opened it at the wrong time. The Tsar actually built a trick into it, the Tsar's trick, where at night it shows the same woman with her throat slit.
Yep.
And he
classic Tsar's trick.
And he thought that it was like a curse, and so he had that Tsar killed.
Yeah.
A little bit of the fairy tale, but it plays into something important about the MacGuffin here. Should we talk about the women, about the lesbian couple here? Because
sure.
it's the only group of people who we haven't discussed aside from like the French family who have nothing about them.
Yeah, like you had to. I got the whistle from the French family.
Yes, yeah.
The from that, which we'll talk about that. I thought I did this earlier, but maybe you can do it multiple times. So there's two women. There is a lesbian or at least a bisexual couple.
Yes,
who are there who don't know that you speak French. Who hang out in the dining car a lot and talk about their future plans. Here, like really well sketched characters that are explicitly a red herring, for you, not related to the plot really. Like you can break in and read their diary to read what they're writing about you. They tease, one of them teases the French woman teases the American woman about finding you attractive.
Yes.
But basically they are there to they're pretty on the nose as far as being lesbians. There's like we'll retire to the Isle of Sapphos, and it's very direct.
Yeah.
But and they're just.
It's interesting hearing them talk about their plans with each other.
Yeah, like good characters. Just that again don't really apply to the game very much. Are not very not a big part of it.
Yeah, it bears mentioning them before before things really get going.
Yeah. And this is I still spent a lot of time digging around in their quarters because I did not know that they had nothing to do
right
with the story. So.
Yep. So things will end when you run into Schmidt in the hallway and say, now that you know a little bit more about what's going on, you say, hey, the deal's on. I can get you the gold. And this happens right as you get into Munich. And the authorities, the port authorities here, they load some more baggage onto the train, which are boxes of weapons and munitions.
Yes.
Oops. All arms deals.
All arms deals. One of the things you maybe, that I knew about the Orient Express because I ran a Call of Cthulhu campaign called Horror on the Orient Express, which included an entire book about the Orient Express that I read, is that one of the reasons why this was such a big deal was because they have a lockdown baggage compartment where they just go through customs once. Yeah. And then this is all under lock and key. Under trust of the train authorities. Right. So the idea, no one can access that. So you don't have, it's like how you, if you have a transfer on a flight, you just have to have your bag checked that one time. Right. And then it just arrives at the next location. It's similar to that. Yeah. Presumably these were checked when he got on, in Munich, but I guess it was just okay. Yeah. And of course it would be because Munich, Munich customs. Yeah. Like we'll find out he works for Munich. Government, works for the Germans. So it would make sense for them to okay these guns that maybe these other countries would not want the guns entering. Right. But they just don't get say in it because Orient Express reasons.
Yes. And that the way that the Orient Express handles luggage is that, like, it actually works into some of the puzzles here as well. Yes. Like it's explained to you if you try and get into the baggage car. You try and play it off like, oh, I just need to get into my thing. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Yep. It's kind of weird that you don't know that, but
yeah, you're thinking the Texas Express.
Yeah.
Where you can do that, cowboy.
American, bang, bang, bang.
Bang, yes, exactly. The train recommended a restaurant called America Town. So this moves us into Chapter 4, Munich to Vienna. You're walking in a dead man's shoes in a dangerous game of intrigue. It could be over very soon if you don't make all the right moves before the train arrives in Vienna. And boy, howdy, could it be over very soon? Yeah. Because this is a complicated series of things you have to do that I found, again, maybe half of which intuitive.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So one of the first things that you'll notice here, if you return to your compartment, Tatiana has left the poem translation on the floor here. And of course, the poem has big puzzle energy. It's a riddle key for you. Something I love about this is that it's not a perfect translation. It is full of corrections. And Tatiana is like, it carries her personality because she will scratch stuff out, write in what she actually meant, and then draw an arrow to it and say sorry.
Yeah. Which I like because Tatiana's
it's a very charismatic document, actually.
I think so too. I like that as well. I think that the actual puzzle content of this is dumb. Yeah. I think little rhyming couplets that just lead to a city and then finding that city on a globe is very like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Yes. In a way that felt artificial.
So you've got this, and you can marinate on that for a while. Something that is going to be real in your face is the fact that a new passenger got on at Munich. This is an extremely talkative Englishman named Abbott.
Yep. I love this performance. Every conversation with Abbott is great. It's annoying, but overhearing him talk and stuff and the way that he instantly gets the better of everyone. This is one of my favorite characters in the game. Yeah. He is very good. He is so clearly a spy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He is pumping everybody, but it is behind this very wink, wink, nod, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like just obnoxious Britishness. Yes. That like he takes refuge in that audacity to get away with it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yes.
So lunch service is coming up. There's a lot of things going on here. So some passengers are complaining about Anna's dog, which of course, right? Yeah. Like it just barks all the time just to let you know it's there. Earlier we overheard that Francois, the shit, enjoys bugs. He caught a beetle and it got away. So we can find a beetle, which we can catch in a matchbox we found in Tyler's jacket.
Aside from disarming the bomb, the most adventure game thing in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, there are 2 adventure game puzzles in this. Yeah. And then 1 Carmen Sandiego puzzle, and that's basically it. Right. So you capture the beetle. It just runs around on a desktop, on a tabletop. And then you can trade it to Francois the shit for this whistle he found, which he had just been running up and down the aisle blowing. Right. Which, come on. Like, this kid's got to go. Why can't I throw him out the window? He's so bad. I need a Hitman level that takes place in this train.
Okay, little shit, Lord Fauntleroy. We're going to teach you a thing or two about a thing or two. Give me the fucking whistle.
And all the time listening to that family, I fucking hate that family. Like, the dad is going to work in the desert and oil fields. And the mom is just like, but what will Francois do? And Francois is like, yes, father. What will I do? And I'm just like, this sucks. Get me away from this fat boy. I need this fat tween to get the fuck away from me.
Well, like, I do like how but Faza.
What they of me?
What?
Oh, none. Merci beaucoup, Father.
This can't be a character. It can't be a character.
It's just like losing my mind about this kid.
It's undoing me. Francois has undone me.
I'm so Luigi Francois.
No, one thing I do enjoy is that when you encounter Francois, with the beetle in the matchbox, Kath negs him at first. It's like, oh, I've got something. Nah, it's too cool for you.
Yeah. But that is not too cool for Francois. Merci. Red balloon. It's like, what could be more obscene than a French child? I can't handle it. Oh, red balloon, you're making me sad.
The mirrors, they point at the sky. Wait, he's Italian now. Fuck.
I know, it's all Europe to me. If they're going to say all Americans are just cowboy doctors, I can get revenge.
I mean, cowboy doctor is a pretty good...
That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good
stereotype. Like the beginning of New Vegas.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you get the whistle from him. Now you have an annoying whistle.
Yep.
Yep. What else happens here? You can be in the lounge and Kronos walks in. Everyone gets up and kind of bows like no one really knows what to do, which is great.
He walks like a king, so
yeah, exactly. He's holding the king clipboard.
It's better to be safe.
So he does. This is his distraction. Mm-hmm. He asks Anna if she would join him for a concert in his car. Mm-hmm. He'll invite certain people. He plays the piano, and she plays the violin.
Yeah.
And this is very transparently so his bodyguard can search her quarters.
Right.
So
yeah. You leave this, and Schmidt will confront you in the hallway. He's getting cold feet. He's like, hey, I need to know, really, I need to know that you have the goods. Show me the gold before we get to Vienna, or this whole thing is off. It's got to be quality on my end or no fucking deal.
Yep.
And that will leave you in hock to the Black Hand. And I don't know, you don't want to be in hock to something called the Black Hand.
No, terrifying.
Yeah.
We mentioned Boutrell, the mom of Francois, was complaining about the conductor with the dog, and says the conductor has to take the dog to the sleeping cars. Right. It's very sad. It's a big dog and goes in a very small cage.
Yeah.
That's the thing that got the most sympathy from me.
They should put Francois in there, honestly.
Yeah, I would, man, if you could put Francois. Oh, he's so sad for Francois. Just should have thought that before you liked the Beatles.
The scène is so petite. He's more petite than Francois.
Francois, you speak. Scène is petite.
May I have my whistle? Whistle pour moi. Une scène petite.
He is like French Uter. And why is a German child a cause for joy, but a French child is a cause for derision? I don't know.
I mean, sorry, I fucking started because Francois is apparently my fucking comedy kryptonite.
He's very funny. Yeah. He's great. The look, I mean, I wish, I don't like being on webcam very much, but I wish that I had been webcamming myself at the moment he was running back up and down the hallway blowing the whistle, because I'm sure I made a face that was not that different than if that happened to me in real life. Like if my apartment got haunted by a ghost Francois, the haunted Francois.
You said his name like 55 times. If you say it 11 more times, 66 times, he's going to come.
Yeah. Merci, it is I. Oh, hey, little ghost buddy.
It is I, Amelie. No, that's from a different podcast.
I am also sad. Okay, little one. I wish they had put him in the cage, even with the dog. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
So the dog gets locked up. The saddest thing about World War I. He wants the proof, blah, blah, blah. The conductor takes the dog. So the dog is gone. You can follow him and let the dog out, which creates an opening where the conductor will have to put the dog away. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of those like little, I hear the lucky dog carts over here, like things you can do just to distract people.
Yeah.
As many times as you need to, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can go into Anna's room at this point, and read through her diary and stuff. And we learn that she is a spy. She is an agent of the Austro-Hungarian crown, and she is investigating Schmidt. Schmidt's got an arms deal with the Serbian rebels to arm them. She's trying to stop from conducting that arms deal.
Yeah, the Hungarian crown not necessarily super into Serbian independence.
Yes,
but also it doesn't make any sense why Schmidt would be doing this under the GIS or under the under the authority of
the
Germany.
Auspices.
Yeah, like why would he be helping Germany betray Hungary? By doing this. So none of this really adds up, but she is, it's worth keeping her at arm's length, at least according to this. You can get the master key. It wasn't the American cowboy doctor who stole the master key. It was her, being the secret police that she is. You get it out of her jewelry box.
Yep. But the Firebird is not here. So we assume, hey, she was going to leave something with Tatiana. That's probably where it's at.
Right.
You get an invitation to Kronos' car, to watch the thing, which I love because that is definitely Kronos like playing chess with you. Like I don't think he actually wants to search your quarters necessarily, even though maybe he does. He doesn't want you doing the kind of shit you're going to do during this.
You go there and you can hear a composition. I think it's a Bach composition, maybe that they play. It's a long concert. It goes on for a while, and pretty much everybody is there, meaning that their rooms are wide open.
Yeah. So you can cough and leave.
Yeah.
To go do something. So if you go to Tatiana's room, you can find the egg. It's hidden under the sink in the washroom. She comes back to check on it. So I just said, so this is why I didn't get this dialogue. I just left and said, like, I was checking on her grandfather.
Right.
But you can actually talk to the grandfather as well.
It's a real power play when he's like, she comes in like, what are you doing in my room? Like, have you followed my directions about when to give your grandfather tea? And he's like, oh, well, okay.
Yes.
You answer a question with a question. It's a real power move.
It's a real move.
Yeah.
So you can take the egg to your chamber to get some time with it. Can we just real quick say, or I just want to say how much of an eyesore this fucking egg is?
It's really bad.
It's one of the ugliest pieces of like great art, like something that narratively is telling me is an object of desire.
Yeah. No.
That is so ugly.
Yeah. It is a victim of like it feels like the fidelity of it more than anything.
Yes.
Like there would be a tasteful way to represent the globe on a golden egg with jewels at particular places around it. Like there would be a way to do that. This ain't it.
I kept thinking of the bronze sphere from Torment.
Oh yeah.
Like just having this kind of, because the way that the gold looks in this is just kind of gross looking, like
it's very moss-like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really unsavory.
Yeah. But you can inspect this, and if you can follow the directions from the poem that describes this journey that the Firebird has taken a princess and a man named the Grey Wolf on. And each verse describes, very obviously different things. Some more obvious than the others. Like I didn't necessarily understand Uluru, or
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I know what Stonehenge is, but finding that on a map is different than knowing what it is or knowing about it.
Yeah.
So this stuff, I ended up big guide city.
I did. The only one I needed a guide for was the first one. I did not know Uluru or the colonialist name, the colonial name for Ayers Rock. Not off the top of my head. The other ones made a little bit more sense to me.
The riddle part made perfect sense. I just don't necessarily know where those are at on an egg globe.
Oh.
I know what Easter Egg Island is. I don't necessarily know where Easter Island is.
Yeah, and I will avoid doing a weird flex.
Well, I don't know that you've avoided it, Cole. I feel like the weird flex already happened in the sentence. The reflexive, me being like, I didn't know where a bunch of these were, and you were like, oh, I just didn't know the first one. I just didn't know the first one. I think that was the weird flex.
Okay.
So, just so you know. Just the first one.
All right.
I can't go with you on this one. I knew most of them. 80%. When you input the answer to this, you click all the buttons. It turns into a robotic bird.
It turns into a robotic bird after a little port opens up for your finger.
Yeah, you stick your finger into the finger slicer, into the cigar trimmer, And instead of like when you finger this egg, instead of it turning into a broken finger, it turns into a robot bird in a real shifty animation.
It looks like a Ho-Oh, the Pokemon Gold Pokemon, that bird. But yeah, it is a mechanical transformer. It is a more ornate version of Bubo the Owl from Clash of the Titans.
Yeah. Bubo's big brother.
Yeah.
And
Bubo breaks big.
Brobo. Yeah. Ubobo. The Ubobu. Bubo. Ububo. So you can blow the scarab whistle. And it will sing this little song. And that's all we know for now.
Yeah.
The actual payoff for what this thing does, it getting mad when there's other music or whatever, I think is dumb as hell.
Well, it's Daybird and Nightbird. It's not necessarily the problem isn't necessarily the other music.
You're right. It is the nighttime version of the bird.
Yeah.
But this kitten has claws. So we had to hide the egg. We decided not to hide it in our room because a bodyguard is about. So we can go hide it in the dog's jail.
Yeah, hide it in dog jail. So that is the safest place for it, and putting it there is necessary for the good ending.
Yep.
Yeah. You can break into Schmidt's room. I like Schmidt's room quite a bit. He's got this letter that he's written to the German baron that he's working for, calling the deal off. And if you search very carefully, you can find his pornography.
Schmidt's been dropping loads on the Orient Express. And previous, like there's a little bit of him like hitting on Anna that will really kick into high gear after the concert. But he is very lovelorn.
Yes.
And it's very sad because she's just trying to, she's there to bust him.
Yeah.
So of course she's paying a lot of attention to him. He cannot handle it, even though he is married and stuff. And this is him trying to be infidelitous.
Yeah.
So we need to get into Kronos' car, but his little lobby area, the concert's going on. So you can use the master key to get to the roof of the train and break into his car. You literally do it by bursting through the skylight, which I was very surprised by.
You're very bold in this whole stretch right here.
Yeah. Yep. Like no one's going to hear that shattering, over this music.
There's a concert going on, and trains are loud.
Trains are loud.
Yeah.
It's also right there though.
Yeah.
But this is where we find out where Kronos has his mystic knowledge of you. He had hired, there's a private investigator report where he had been following yours and Tyler's movements.
Yes. Yeah. And also like his room, his quarters are just full of all of this famous art. Like they're actual pieces. Like, a major puzzle is examining this Klimt painting and like noticing a button that is embedded into it. So that opens a safe, this compartment, with a briefcase full of gold inside. And you have uses. A man can find uses for a briefcase full of gold.
Exactly. And that's the motivation for him wanting the egg. We didn't mention it earlier, but he's an art collector. So you cannot go out the roof though, because the suitcase is heavy.
Right.
You can try though, and you drop the suitcase and you just like grab the ledge in a way that was like the finger shreddingest. Like you had just burst through the light. Like there's just jagged pieces of glass there. I was like, oh, this is how my character dies.
Yeah.
I just lose all my fingers at once.
Sepsis.
But you can't do that. So you have to just walk out of the chamber in the middle of the concert.
I love this so much.
It felt like I was certain this was going to fail. Like I tried this because I couldn't think of anything else to do. I was certain I was going to lose. But you have that awesome like social camouflage. Like nobody, the guests don't necessarily know this is untoward.
Right.
Kronos does, and he makes eyes at you, but he's in the middle of a concert. He needs to save face.
Yeah. He doesn't want to call attention to the fact that he is here to make this illicit deal.
Yeah.
He needs to have this mystique. And if he just stops playing piano and says, that man, he has my gold. That suitcase he has, that's my gold. Like it's below his station.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you're also on a train. So like, where are you going to go?
Totally. Yeah. Like again, the setting is really helped by this.
Yeah.
And again, I talked about the protagonist being kind of smarter than I am. So it would never have occurred to me to be like, I just need to borrow the gold to show it to Schmidt and then not give it to him and then put the gold back.
Yeah.
Like that feels like a weird gamble to me. And I never would have done it in real life.
No.
So I was just kind of pushing on seams, and that's the way the story worked out. I wasn't necessarily making a smart puzzle choice.
It's a big
about
leap.
Doing this.
Yeah.
It's a big leap. So this is kind of where the game part of this is not strong.
Yeah.
you know, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to take the gold, show it to Schmidt, and he says, okay, you know, I will go ahead and stay until at least Belgrade.
All right. Proof of life. Gotcha.
Yep.
Good. Yeah.
And when you come back, Kahina, the bodyguard, approaches you with a gun.
Of course.
And says, let's go see Kronos, you know, because of course you weren't going to get away with this thing.
No.
But you do, you give it back. Like he says, you know, you could have kept that if you had brought the other, which we have now, at this point. But
this will lead to the ending. Like this will lead to an ending that feels like it makes sense.
Yeah. You can give it to him, you know, at this point and just have the gold. And get off. There's a couple of places where you can leave with the money. The reason that's framed as a bad ending is because you don't find out what killed your friend.
Yeah.
But then when I actually found out what killed my friend, I was so infuriated by how dumb and not related to the actual plot or politics of it was that I consider getting off the train with the gold the good ending. Yeah. Like, yes, you don't get laid, but fuck it, man. Like a bunch, you know, I don't know.
I've got a briefcase full of gold.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this like gigantic briefcase here.
Yeah,
that is good. That's good enough for my Kath.
Yeah. So, you know, it seems to make sense. It's also implied like you
King Seeker Kath. How about Kingmaker Kath with his gold?
Yeah. You know, like it's not like by staying on this train and navigating this deal, you avert or delay the start of World War I. Like in a lot of ways, this is a tragedy, right? You know, there is something waiting. There is something waiting at the end of this that none of the characters know about. That is inevitable. You cannot avert it. People here are either involved in or are representatives of the different forces that happen. But like you getting off and, you know, getting off somewhere in Europe and buying another ticket to get to Constantinople or Jerusalem with maybe more unsavory people after you doesn't seem like that big of an upset to the status quo. You know, what's crazy is that's what's happening to us right now as well. Like the same thing you described as as like a tragedy because we don't know this horrible thing that's going to happen, and we are representative of, or at least involved in some of the forces that are making it, is 100% true of us and everyone listening to this as well. Oh yeah, no, what you're describing, Gary, is called anxiety. Yeah, but I mean, it's true. Like, it's you know, it's not paranoia. Like, it's like literally true. Right. Like, it's not like there's not going to be. We don't number things when there's not going to be more of them. Right. You know? I mean, ultimately, World War II was the real decision that this is going to keep happening. Yeah. You know, like when they decided to put a 2 at the end of it. Yeah. I mean, at the time, it was just called the Great War. But yeah. So yeah, just the actual ending of this is sadder than the ending of you just walking off and with a bunch of money. Right. So Kath, you say like, I'm not actually after the gold. I need to know who killed my friend. Kronos like answers, at this point, like he believes you. That you're not. He's like, I don't actually know. He says, I need something though as payment for you getting into my things. He takes the scarf from you, gives it also a sniff for pervert protective reasons. You know. And this again is just, it's pointing us at Anna. Yeah. You know, so you follow her to the luggage car to get the egg from the dog cage, and she gets the drop on you. Right. As you are looking over the weapons, you go to get the egg, and you're also going to go and check out the guns to see if Schmidt has brought the goods. Yeah. And in the struggle, and she's like, oh, I knew there was more to you than I saw. You disarm her and throw the gun across the room, which is a real problem because one of the Serbians, has also come in to check on the goods, Vesna, and she starts attacking you. You cannot be here. You just have to keep on dodging in this terrible combat engine until Anna gets her gun back. Yeah. And in this, there's some dialogue there where she thinks that you are the person who killed Tyler. Yes. And you're like, no, you killed Tyler. And because you call her out, you're like, I know who you are. But she's like, no, I've never killed anybody. Right. She's like, well, you have the motive. Like, you'd want to stop the arms deal. Vesna comes in. Anna gets the gun back as, puts it up to Vesna's head. Vesna runs off. Right. And you share kind of a moment like, hey, both of us are in over our heads. Yeah. We both thought we had more answers than we did. So maybe we have common cause. I actually don't know. Yeah. I think the game is kind of treating it like
they do. There's a couple of things where there's the cadence of that team up. There's the cadence of romance between them, where the game is presenting it more than I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
In terms of the story, and part of it is because of those actions that feel kind of arbitrary that I've been making. Like the lack of me that's in this keeps it a mystery to the player. Like this game keeps the player at arm's length in a way that is not always great,
right,
to me. So in Vienna, we get a cutscene. Anna gets off to greet somebody and exchange flowers and get actual like code word kind of things and pick up an item from that person. That's another spy. And Kronos and Kahina get off.
Yeah, their car is actually detached here in Vienna.
So we have no gold at this point.
Right.
But we do have the robot.
Right.
So
cool.
We do have a robot. Moving us on to Chapter 5, the Vienna to Budapest.
Yes. So far, you've played it brilliantly. If all goes well, you'll soon be in Budapest. But considering who your fellow passengers are, that's a big if.
Yeah. Yep.
So you start on the restaurant, on the dining car. Schmidt sits down, takes his seat. Takes his seat. And down the hall, Anna is asking a conductor, saying like, hey, can you tell Schmidt that I'm not going to make our arrangement? I'm not going to make our date. And you can go back and listen to the news being delivered. Schmidt does not revise the wine order. He gets a bottle of wine, bottle of champagne, and later he's going to get into some brandy.
Yeah, he's sad because he thought that she liked him.
Yeah.
He's drinking his sorrows. You can talk to him a little bit later and kind of, if you commiserate with him a little bit, he's like, Anna's attitude has changed. He keeps pouring you brandy for you to drink. He's, over drinking. Yeah. And you can basically console him with just a tiny little bit of like the weakest sauce.
Yes.
Like, well, she's an artist. Artists are fickle. And he goes, they're fickle? Oodle what a day.
Yeah. So you're telling me I've got a chance.
That's exactly what he does. He gets up and dances with you. He's like, I'll hire her to play at my house. Like, I'll get my wife to watch me finger her. Like, it's this whole like weird, like Schmidt is pretty, again, big Mosley energy. This nincompoop. So we as we're continuing along, we're outside of Galanta. Tatiana comes to your compartment and says, Alexei is acting crazy.
Right.
He asked me to get off the train at Budapest with him and abandon my grandfather. We've seen him building a bomb.
Yes. We could get into his compartment earlier than this and see more evidence of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's planning to blow up the train to kill this old man. He talks early. He's very transparent. Earlier, you can talk to him and he's like, the victims of an act don't matter. The symbology of the act matters.
Yeah, because he's a fucking terrorist.
Yeah, he's absolutely like, he's like, absolute shithead. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, that does not make me trust you. So we can, we go into his room at this point. We can find, he's got a note. He's reading, Asprechen.
Also Sprachzarathustra.
Yeah, there you go. And he has a train timetable with 10:40 written on it. As well as like a bunch of bomb making materials and a book that's like how to make bombs and things like that. So it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to take a part of this bomb and think I've taken care of it. I'm going to take the clock.
Right. But there are other clocks on the train. So.
Yeah. Well, we don't know that yet. I thought I had solved the
Me
puzzle.
Too. Yeah.
But this is not solving the puzzle.
Yeah. I love when you go to leave and Abbott walks in on you.
Yeah.
and he has the gall to say, "Well, sorry, but I believe you have the wrong room."
Yeah, and you're like, well, we both have the wrong room.
Yeah, you have the wrong.
Like everyone's a spy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Kind of reminded me of Clue. That little dialogue exchange.
God, I love that.
So you go to sleep. You have a dream about the train leaving a tunnel and arriving at a castle, where you embrace Anna. Someone knocks on the door and she fades away.
And when you open the door, you actually like Kath in his weird clairvoyance walks in and sees Alexei brandishing a knife at the old man, at Obolinski. Vasily is his name. But Vasily gets the better of Alexei and stabs him repeatedly, just like gives him just a straight up Oz just perforation. Tatiana's screaming. And that is what wakes you up is this brutal murder that happens on the train. And you walk in, Vasily is praying, Tatiana is weeping, and Alexei is dying there, he grabs your lapel and brings you in close and says, "Hey, get Tatiana, take her away from here." The clock, and then in Russian he says, "Long live anarchy."
Yep. So he's on his deathbed. He is regretting. Basically, what happened was they had a struggle,
yes,
of some kind, and the old man had been sick of it and stabbed the young man.
Yeah.
So there is you're like, oh, so there's still a bomb at this point. Now, this is also a place where I got some game overs, because I was like, oh, he does not know that I've taken out that I fucked this up. Like, maybe he thought, of course he would. Like, he went to go put up the bomb, put together the bomb, could not find the clock.
Right. Oh, so you went back to sleep.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, he's still under the impression that's going to blow up, and that doesn't make any sense, but, in retrospect. But, what had happened was he had made another bomb.
Right.
You can hear a ticking. You can follow it to the back of one of the sleeper cars and open a panel. So he has taken another clock to create the bomb. Right. Again, this is tons of 1,000 game overs
at every step.
Every choice.
At every choice. Even leading up to this, but the disarming itself, it's, I don't know how realistic it is, but one wrong move and everybody goes up.
Yeah, and it's not like a traditional wire clipping thing. Like, it's opening the box the right way. Then you have to get these wires. So you expose the wires with your matches to burn off the insulation. So you can twist them to get in there. Yeah. And then this I would never have thought of this in a million years.
Nope.
You just stick a piece of paper. Like, you find your telegram to stick between the relays of the bomb, and that disarms it.
There's information should have been anywhere else in the game.
Anywhere. Like, there's no reason for a player to know that. Like, I get the poetry of, hey, it's the telegram that sent you here. Makes you the hero. Like, oh, it was Whitney's, he was kind of involved in this act of heroism. Because you find out, Whitney is a freedom fighter, basically. Like, that is, he's a politically motivated, arms dealer for these things, because he's a revolutionary. Yeah. But in no universe does this feel like this would work.
Right.
This drove me nuts. Like, I mean, eventually, and when I say it drove me nuts, I just looked online for a solution. Yeah. It's just, there's two different ways you can feel after looking up a solution for something. You can feel like, oh, that makes sense. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Or you can feel mad. Where I'm like,
you expected me to do what?
To know that? Yeah. That is how I felt about this.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so dumb.
Like, I don't know, maybe when I'm looking through Alexi's stuff, I grab one of his pamphlets, I grab his little anarchist cookbook, and, I can use that as a guide, Yeah. I don't know.
That would be great. There should be bomb making materials in there. It's more weird that it's not in there. Like, he just memorized how to make this or jury rig a bomb with any clock.
Yeah.
So you disarm the bomb.
Right.
Abbott invites you for a drink at this point, and
he sounds so sad.
I don't know what he wants to play.
Okay.
He'll get next to me, and he'll make these very mournful, sad cries, which seem like they're very sweet. And then I'll pet him, and he will nibble at me because he wants to play.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was the most heartbreaking sound I've ever heard. Yeah. Yeah,
he gets very pathetic. But he's actually, in these moments, he is actually being a Bernie bro. He's actually being a Bernie bro to me by biting me. Because anything I don't like is Bernie bro.
Yeah.
So the Abbott here invites you for a drink, and he fesses up.
Yeah.
Basically, and he's part of the company.
Yeah, he's his company man. I don't know if it was MI6 at the time, but MI6. British intelligence kind of sent him to stop an anarchist from blowing up Obolinski, like he knew about the plot. He also knew that there was a rogue American on board, and he was basically biding his time because he wasn't sure which of you was more dangerous.
Yeah.
But he's, kind of working you over, is buttering you up. You say hey, I really admire your work. Can you, do you want to come join us? Do you want to come,
would you like to be a Kingsman?
Right. Would you like to be a Kingsman?
The Golden Circle or whatever. The Kingsman in the Golden Circle.
And he pretty much threatens you, saying hey, if you do this, we can get that whole Belfast thing off of the off of your record. But if you don't, who's to say that who's to say that it won't get worse for you, basically.
Yeah, this is all big sequel book stuff. You deny I'm not much of a joiner. And he says sometimes things happen to force people to take sides, like in the Last Express 2. The even after the last.
Yes.
Anna walks by while this is happening. You follow her to her compartment and you kiss. This read as fine and romantic to me. Like everyone thought they were going to blow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hormones are going crazy. But the train goes kind of tilts at this point. Was supposed to slow down for this curve, but it's not stopping.
Right.
And this is like around here. So like bomb forward is where this game loses me.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Like I don't think anything that happens after this is particularly cool.
Right.
Or interesting. It's mechanically the most frustrating stuff in the game. And also the dumbest plot stuff happens.
Yeah.
From kind of here onward. Like I consider the bomb and that conversation with Abbott kind of to be the climax and all of chapter 6 to be kind of dumb.
So from this point forward, the Serbian separatists, they're a little bit like the nihilists in The Big Lebowski. Where like everything is resolved, but there is still this like extremely absurd just group of people that say like, nope, we're going to have an extra 20% on top of this.
Yes.
That's a little bit what this feels like, because the Serbians, Miloš's people, have hijacked the train, and the first victim of this is that Miloš shoots the eunuch bodyguard, taking him off of the plate, as it were, off the table, as somebody who could be involved in more intrigue.
Yeah, and he was not involved in very much at all anyway. That whole character thing is basically there to provide a roadblock.
Yes.
And a red herring. So we move on to chapter 6, Budapest to Constantinople, not Istanbul. It is no longer about solving a murder. An entire train full of passenger and crew is in danger, and only you can save them.
Right.
Which is true-ish. Yeah. So you wake up, you've been hogtied on the floor. So, Robert Cath, 0, Gary 1. And
you mean you've never been hogtied?
Yeah, and I hope to never be hogtied.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember that conversation. And I asked you, you've never been hogtied? Like, oh, you've never been to Paris?
You've never been? You should come to Paris and get hogtied with Francois. To hogtie that kid.
Have you ever been hogtied in the Louvre?
You have not been hogtied until you have been hogtied on the banks of the Parisian River and seen a sunset. Poor fool. So you struggle to get your matches out to burn the ropes around your arms, which seems like a really good way to set yourself on fire. Like this was also a dumb puzzle.
Yep.
Okay, I would definitely die from this.
Yeah. And this starts a very long combat section because you got to deal with those Serbs. First off, Ivo comes in and attacks you. This is just a real basic duck and counter kind of deal.
Yep. Anna is tied up here, and we talked to her. She's like, hey, we're almost at the border. We've got to stop the train because if we get to Serbia, we'll be killed.
Right. We're going to cross the line, and instead of throwing our hat on the ground and stopping on it, they will have jurisdiction and kill us. So,
yes.
Also, I mean, for her, she has jurisdiction here while they're in Hungary. So she is very invested in things stopping right now.
Yes.
Kath explains to her saying like, and this only happens if you have read the letter in Schmidt's quarters, things like that, saying like, hey, you've been set up, Anna. Schmidt was set up as well. Germany wanted an incident. They wanted something on top of what happened in Sarajevo with the assassination to start a war. And this arms deal, if somebody was found selling munitions to these terrorists, to these separatists, well, that would be just enough. And, she leaves. She's like, no, that can't be true. How could they have got one over on me? But, she just runs away.
Yep. So she leaves, running towards the front of the train. You follow. If you go into the restaurant, you just get cut. Vesna just immediately slashes you in the face. So you have to go up on the roof. And then we fight old Salko, another Serbian. So it's another fight, this time with a big inanimate rod. And it just makes the fight a little bit different, but none of these fights are good.
Right.
So it's horrible. You manage to wrestle it away from him and throw him off the train.
Right. Bye-bye, Selko.
Like a mama. And then we hear a sword unsheathing behind us. It's Vesna, the end boss of Serbia.
If you do, the end boss of Serbia. If you don't turn around after you hear the sword unsheath, then you're going to get killed. So you have to turn around. And this brings about the most irritating fight because it's very long. It's also the most complex. You have to choose which direction to dodge in. So you have to read her animations to figure out if you need to block up or dodge down. Yes. You might have to do this over and over again because you do not beat her by pummeling her with your inanimate iron rod, rather. You beat her because the fight ends when she ducks, and you have like a split second to get down as well because you're going through a tunnel.
Which is kind of clever. Like, she's facing the tunnel. Yes. Your back is to, where the train is going. So she would see it before you. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of clever, but like, boy, is it frustrating to do action stuff in this game.
Yes.
So that is, then you can kind of struggle at this point after you guys duck, in that you are left hanging on the side of the train. She's kind of going to step on your fingers like a villain, but you yank her off by her feet.
Yes.
Throwing people off trains is Kath's primary fatality.
Of course.
That he does.
Ring out.
Yeah, he rings you out with extreme prejudice. So you walk up to the front of the train, and we see Milos at the helm.
Yeah. And you can end it here. Like, you can, rightfully jump down there and deal with him, but that is not the good ending. Because, you still have all of these people on this train, and he is still in control of the train.
Yeah.
So I forget exactly what happens, but it ends with you, like, getting a medal, but things are still bad.
Yes.
You've caused an international incident. No, that's a later one. Sorry.
Yeah. There's lots of, everything is a way to end now.
Yes. Yeah.
So just know that we're following the proper path here. I don't know if I did. That's, I can't remember it exactly either.
Right.
What you're supposed to do is go back to the dining car. So you let the passengers know most of the Serbians are gone. So go to the sleeping compartments.
75% of the Serbians are dealt with.
Yeah, taking care of most of Serbia. Everyone goes back, except for the Russians. Do not go back. Tatiana is having a really rough time.
Yeah.
With us.
All of the violence, she has regressed. Like, she is singing to herself, and it's bad news.
And you're going to save the people on the train by decoupling the back half of the train.
Yes.
Schmidt catches you. This is a great scene because he's on the other side of it.
Yes.
And he thinks you're trying to get out of the deal, and you're like, no, Anna never liked you. She was a spy. You're being framed by your bosses. And he's like being separated. You've separated the train cars, so he's being put away from you. And you're saying, oh, actually, Robert Kath's my name.
I just love that.
It's real good. Again, setting him up as like probably a recurring character. Mm-hmm. I can imagine him popping up if they did sequels.
100%.
Because, so when we go back to the dining car, I missed this actually. This is an optional scene.
Yeah. No, but the Russians are still there. They didn't go back to their compartments. So, Vasily is, talking to her, trying to comfort her, saying, hey, things are going to be just like they were. Things are going to be, just like normal. We're going to go back. And he's naming all these people, who lived with them at their big house on the lake, et cetera, et cetera. And she's not having any of it. Like, even though she is like singing to herself, she knows the truth. Like, they're all dead. Like, we were trying to get away from that because a home is a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
So, it's bad. And it plays into the usual trope of Russians being, just fonts of endless tragedy. In fiction. Yes.
Yep. You climb up on the roof to go after Milos now. He thinks you are working for the Hungarians. He says that Tyler died for the cause. I was like, oh, he was lying about killing him. He killed Tyler. Mm-hmm. No, the truth is way stupider than that.
There have been any number of good ways that Tyler could have died.
Yeah, it's incredibly dumb. Anna shoots him. He falls off the train.
Right.
Anna tells the worker, like, say, stop shoveling coal at this point.
Yeah.
And you turn around and release the emergency brake so you won't stop.
Right.
So this is, forgive me for being dumb. Why don't you want to stop in Austria?
So why don't you want to stop in Austria? I mean, primarily because that is not his goal. He wants to get to Constantinople. You don't know that, though. Like,
I don't know that, and I don't know why.
So I mean, he wants to get to Constantinople so he can go to Jerusalem in order to study manuscripts and learn more about his like secret society or whatever.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
So this whole thing where she's saying like, stop the car. Like, do you not think that you can get there from Austria? Like this whole, like, at this point I had this huge disconnect from my character because he was making an argument that I would not make. Where he's like, no, like, we're going to keep going. And I'm like, well, do you remember the whole part where it's like, if we stop in Serbia, like the Serbians will kill us? Where is this end of the line shit from the secret society that you belong to with your magical ring, which has barely come up at this point, and going to Jerusalem to study manuscripts? Almost none of that is in the game.
No, like, he never describes it either. Yeah,
and that if it's just to not have to catch a different ride, it's so unbelievably stupid after like separating a train car, doing all of these things. And at this point, I thought, oh, okay, like Milos was lying about not killing because he's a villain. Like he was going to kill everybody on this train. Yeah. So of course he would lie about killing Tyler. Yeah. You know. So this just made no sense to me. Like I was just like, this is really dumb. I get it now in retrospect that he wants to go to the thing. He wants to go somewhere else, but that is undermotivated to me.
Yeah. Like, so the thing that is left hanging at this point, like if you end, you don't know how Tyler died. And that has kind of been, your express, intention being on this train, not only to stay alive, your express stated intention so far. Like, I need to figure out what's going on with Tyler. It's been the reason you have been working all these people to try and figure out, because the suspect is on the train, and like, maybe I just decoupled them from us, and the suspect is many, many miles back. If you stop here, like, it's never explained, like, okay, well, you stop here, maybe the Austrians had something to do with it, and they will keep you and stymie you from learning the truth, et cetera, et cetera. If it stops, like this ending seems fine. Like, you don't get the answer and you get a medal, and then you're embroiled in World War I as it breaks out literally like the next day. But yeah, it's very poorly conveyed.
It just seems like a way better ending.
Yeah.
Than the actual ending that I got.
Yeah. She wants you to stop in Austria because of jurisdiction reasons. You want to get out of Austria because of jurisdiction reasons, basically.
Yeah, I don't know that it does the jurisdiction stuff very well. I feel like that. I don't think that the game actually expresses that idea. Yeah. I think this is where the game falls down from not letting us into our main character's head at all. Yeah. And keeping us at this distance. Like, it just felt arbitrary and dumb.
Because we know nothing about Constantinople aside from that's where the line ends. We know nothing about Jerusalem
at all. Yeah, in this game, like, and now like this is actually all incredibly dumb. I like forgot in the run up to this that we're gonna have a train chase. Yeah, like. So she says, so we're crossing the border. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll lower the gun because we're on a train. We have no point. Abbott shows up. However, a Serbian army train is chasing us at this point. We're being chased by another train. Like, there's a reason why there are car chases and not train chases. And then the Serbians also switch us to old track with the idea that the bridge won't handle the modern train's weight.
Right.
However, we barely cross it, and then the bridge collapses behind us, so the other train pulls off its hat and stomps on it. Yep. And shakes its fist at us.
And stops immediately, like trains do.
Stops on a dime, just like a runaway train.
And also, what was the Serbians' plan? Oh, that train has the train has the munitions that we need. Let's throw them into the bottom of a gorge surrounded by like flaming twisted iron.
Yeah, let's swim down to grab the weapons that will miraculously be. Why don't they make the whole gun out of the black box? Like, nothing makes sense at this point in this game. No. Like, this plot is actually like a really excellent setup and middle.
It was really good up until the bomb plot.
Yeah, the bomb plot is really where this goes. And then you run into structural problems where this game has to be about everything that was happening at this time.
It's like, so like it is they got like 80% through and said, oh fuck, we need a conclusion, and then they just started breathlessly rushing to like, all right, we know rushing to some kind of ending that makes that does not match to anything that happened before, really.
Well, not just that, but so that's definitely true. And then also the lack of focus is pretty crazy because basically everything that happens with Russians in this is its own little side story that we're only getting foisted upon us. Like, it has nothing to do with Tyler or any of the principal characters. It's this story between these two halves of Russia that was like also happening at the same time.
That's also a little bit the story of World War One as well.
Well, for sure, but I'm not saying it's. But it
didn't need to be mapped into this game like that.
Yeah. Like it ends up feeling really weird that just as we are getting the closure and understanding, like the big reveal of this game is when you realize the German plot. That Schmidt and Anna were patsies.
Yes.
That is the kind of thing. And all of the principles, all the things having to do with our friend are then solved.
Right.
We don't know how he died yet, which we will find out. But spoiler, we have the reason, we have the murder weapon.
We know the suspect is still on the train with us.
Suspect is still on the train. Everything that happened with Russia, other than having that thing translated, has been this little side story that nonetheless ends up being this major source of fail conditions.
Yes.
Between the bomb and between
what Tatiana does later. Yeah.
Yeah, Tatiana does later. So it just is not very focused in a way that is to its detriment.
Yeah.
I think. And it's part of the reason why my character is now all of a sudden the story has lost me.
Yeah.
I'm no longer with you. And it's I was on that car that got decoupled. Me and Schmidt and Francois having a fat boy party, just eating chocolates and drinking brandy and dancing.
I mean, other than Francois being there, that doesn't sound like a bad time.
It's at some point, that piggy's gonna squeal. We're gonna roast Francois.
Okay. Yeah.
And eat him alive.
Yes, of course.
The small boy.
Yes, the small boy in the dog cage.
Yeah. This Uterbraten is so good. Croak Francois. Eat here. Anywho. So the train is chasing us. We escape from the train. Later, we check in with Anna. It's been a busy day.
Vibe check. Hey, Anna, how you doing?
Everything okay.
Yeah.
And she congratulates you getting out of there, but then mocks you about not finding who killed Tyler, which is a low blow.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And there's a good dialogue here. She's like, I fight for my country. And she's like, what is your country? You speak this language. Yeah. You're from this language. You were a patsy of this country. Basically, signaling that end of an era, kind of a gloralization, where kind of this sort of nationalism is no longer really in style.
Right.
We are those and the Orient Express is a big symbol of that, of the blurring of borders. You can talk to two porters earlier where they literally talk about that. Or Schmidt, rather, when you can overhear Schmidt and Abbott talking. Yeah. And Schmidt talks about the future where there actually will not be borders. This is just going to be a formality. We will just be able to do trade. Trade will be the international language.
Yes.
There is a lot of energy about this, about, cutting down on nationalism, and you kind of challenge her with it.
Yeah. Basically saying hey, a little bit more tactfully than Alexa might do, but this thing that you're buying into is actually really harmful to you and is making you useful to people who do not have your best interest in mind.
And with my general, it is insane to pledge allegiance to a country, in that way, kind of doing something purely because a government tells you to do it.
Yeah.
Is not good.
Right.
Is a more accurate way of putting what I feel. This is appealing to me.
Yes.
And of course it works. He says hey, this is where he starts talking about Jerusalem.
Right.
He wants to find this manuscript because he's been doing this whole Indiana Jones plot that we don't get to see.
Yep.
He's like, you should come along.
Yeah. And she recognizes, she notices the signet ring that you have on, I know where that tower is. Yeah. And he says, why do you think I care about that? Well, you're wearing it. And then just it's a family crest. Every part of that means something. And Gas nope, la, 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 I'm not listening.
Because he is a Schottenjäger or whatever they were going to reveal Kath to be.
Right.
If they got to make the sequels.
Right. So
you're going all of a sudden, though, Kronos is back.
Yeah.
Again, like we have lost the plot in a very intentional way.
Yeah.
Like he got back on at some point that we did not see, and the game did not show fit to show us.
He somehow got off. He decoupled from the Orient Express and caught up to what has to have been the fastest train
past a broken bridge.
Right.
Caught up, like got in a helicopter or something,
right.
like, got in a World War I biplane and got to dive back into this. And then so now Kronos and Kahina, the bodyguard, are back. It makes no sense.
Right. And he demands, bring me the Firebird. I am this weirdo art collector. This is the thing that is most important to me. You have fucked around enough. It can end here if you kept the Firebird in your cell, in your quarters. But if you stash the egg up in the dog cage, you go there and grab it.
Yep. When we get it, he says, open the egg. He's got a gun on you.
Right.
At this point. And you open the egg, you hear the bird's heartbeat. Everyone is acting like it's not a big eyesore. And no one is like, oh, it's a transformer. Like nobody's weirded out by this robot that they're suddenly confronted with.
Yeah.
It's big. It's a big robot too. I keep saying robot. Yeah. I know that makes everyone think that it's like a human-sized robot. Mm-hmm. It's like 2 feet long.
It's not the size of a crow. It's the size of a raven.
Yes. Big robot.
Yeah.
And he makes Anna play the violin to make the bird sing.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically have to stall until sun sets.
Yeah.
Because, swing for the fences, John Boy, or whatever the twist was from Signs. Your friend telling you to make it sing was telling you how to fight at the end.
Right. And also the book that you read, the Sick Man of Europe or whatever, talking about the reveal of the slit throat woman in it, but it's like, hey, the egg has a dual nature, day and night. And when you have it open, instead of, he says, hey, put it away, you can pull out the scarab whistle instead, which you blew earlier. And during the daytime, the scarab whistle would make the bird sing.
Yes.
At nighttime, however, it activates the slash protocol.
Yes. This makes the Last Express largely considered to be a very classy game, and rightfully so.
Like a very grown-up game, right?
A grown-up, classy game that is very dry, very difficult. Modern, mature themes and such. Hinges on a egg that turns into a killer attack robot.
Yep.
Like the greatest weapon known to mankind, the Firebird. I lost my mind. Like, I don't live with anybody, so when I talk, like, it's usually to a purpose, or I'm just asking Pocket if he is baby.
Right.
But this was me literally just like, no way, like, just to my like a filthy streamer, like a Twitch streamer. I was just yelling at my TV, or yelling at my computer screen, like, what the fuck? And I was rolling. I did not expect this. One bit. It's
extra absurd because they didn't photograph a model, they didn't make a model of this and photograph it. It is a cartoon bird overlaid on this existing style. Yeah.
No one's invented the Firebird for real. We don't have attack eggs. Cool. We can do it.
The attack egg technology would not have been perfected for decades.
No, World War I was a huge setback with attack eggs. If it wasn't for the events of this game, we'd have an attack egg in every home.
I know.
Like everyone would just have an attack egg, and they could just make it sing whenever there's an intruder about. The attack egg doctrine.
But the attack, but the attack drone bird goes after, kills Kahina.
It knows who. It's intelligent. It knows who the threats are.
Yeah.
And it follows whoever brings it to life.
Uh-huh.
So it's got a rudimentary clockwork AI inside it. So it takes care of the villains that miraculously reappeared on the train.
Uh-huh. And it's about to turn on Kath and Anna, but they jump out of the train, which it flies. So
you're never safe from
attack that's egg. The thing about the attack egg. You're never safe.
And then when you you get off at this point. And this is where you conclude the dog jumps off, so the dog survives.
Of course,
because the train's gonna blow up too.
So we jump off while the train is still moving. It's weird. Yeah. It's weird that Kronos is still on here, but you're like,
he just got birded.
Only true.
The bird is holding him down.
Right. No, but God, the train stops like 50 yards away from where you jump off. Yeah, it's at the station in Constantinople. We cut across. Back onto the train. Tatiana, in her post-traumatic days, she's singing to herself. She's in the luggage car, and she's standing over the crate of munitions, and she's saying they mustn't get the guns. There must be no more war. And she picks up some of your matches and lights them, ignites a bomb. It blows up. It destroys the train. We get a very gruesome shot of Abbott's face blowing apart like it's Hitler in Bionic Commando.
Oh, hold up, Cole. Bionicle Commando?
Ooh.
But anyway, so this is just, I don't know. Again, this game just trying to be about everything that could possibly happen in this point in history.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this subplot. I don't like Tatiana doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, it just doesn't, her turning into a grief robot did not work for me.
And then unrelated to the train car exploding, nobody at the station seems to be concerned with this massive explosion that has happened, killing everybody on board and presumably anybody close to the train.
Yeah.
Kath walks up to a little boy saying, "You there, boy, what day is today?"
It's war day, sir. It's our first armistice day, sir.
The kid looks up to you, war were declared. And so all of your high adventure plans with Anna, they go out the window because her nationalism reasserts her duty, her place is to go back to Hungary. She says, "Hey, this war's not going to last more than a month. I'll catch the next, Orient Express, and we're going to get back together. Oh, can you dog sit for me?"
Yeah. And little do you know, and she's like, "Oh, the war won't last a month." Little, this is the last time for a while that the Orient Express will run. This was the last run.
Yeah.
Before the thing. Also, somewhere in there when you're talking about like, oh, the bird must have killed Tyler, and this is not given proper shrift.
No, it doesn't.
No one is. So here's the thing. The reason why this bird is so funny. I know we were already over the bird, but we're going to spend some more time with the bird.
I'm not over the bird.
I'm never over the bird. So why is everyone in this game over the bird? if we are this,
because war were declared.
Well, just nobody here has seen anything like this. I can imagine a drone.
Right.
I can imagine an egg drone that shoots things, but like a flying semi-intelligent attack bird. This would be like if I went back in time and showed them an iPhone. And him just being like, the Firebird must have killed Tyler. And then moving on. Like, what do you mean the robot bird must have killed your friend? That's it.
Who made it?
Who made it? Why? Is there an army of them? Can I get a dozen of them?
Yeah. Are there more of these? Do we need to stop this?
Yeah. What country do these belong to? Who gives a shit about those guns?
Pretty soon, every country and every .com's going to have a murder egg.
Their own flying battle tank. It's just amazing. And in no point, like, if this were like an experimental itch.io game that was meant to have a certain tone and then do this tone at the end as a joke, like a long version of Room of a Thousand Snakes or whatever. This could not be funnier as a thing that happened. Like, good Lord. And just the fact that they move on from it so quickly is so fucking funny. I need an oral history of this game that's just about this choice. Good Lord. Not that bird.
Sick, that goddamn bird.
It's just like I
don't like it. I mean, so the bird is a MacGuffin, right?
But this MacGuffin's got claws, Cole.
the MacGuffin has claws for sure. I don't think I'm an especially smart man, but I'm not an especially dumb man. I've been rolling this over in my head. What the fuck does the bird symbolize?
Yeah, in a game where everything to a fault needs to symbolize something about a very specific time in geopolitics.
What does the bird stand in for?
I don't know. I don't know. And it's like, it makes it not a MacGuffin.
Yep.
Like the whole idea of a MacGuffin is that it doesn't have any intrinsic value. It's just what the plot revolves around.
Yeah.
This has so much intrinsic value. Like I want to upgrade my units in StarCraft so they can carry one of these.
It's got big Protoss energy is the thing.
I know. Like, well, that's what they symbolize, actually, the waiting invasion of the Protoss. We got the Hungarians, the Serbians, the Germans, the British, the French, and the Protoss.
the Protoss.
That's World War One. World War One X, my new novel I'm self-publishing on Amazon. Like, fuck, man. Like, I it's so amazing. Like, what a surprise. What a surprise.
But the thing is, I'm so happy right now that I can't be angry at it.
I know, it's very funny. Like the joy and the laughter that came of it, both like from talking about it and from playing it, and like, you know, once a month for the next like couple of years, I'll just be like, oh yeah, the robotic bird killed Tyler Whitney.
Here's the thing.
It'll make me laugh.
You know, this is a game that people talk about, and every fucking thing in the entire world is a meme. How did I not know about the fucking murder bird?
Yeah, you know, in the GOG and stuff. So that Easter egg with the conductor juggling his head.
Right.
So that's used for like promotional shots of this game. Like it's an Easter egg, but it's a very famous thing. The fact that this revolves around a robot kill bird is not, and that feels unjust to me because like the head juggling thing is cool, even though I mean I didn't mention this earlier, but just as a thing, like I really thought there's gonna be more kind of surreal imagery that would happen, like there's gonna be more dreamy weemy. So anyways, like I don't like dreams that reveal the plot in fiction. I don't think that's a good plot device, but at least would have been visually cool. Instead, the out there-ness comes from this explicitly sci-fi weapon. That is just really pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You know, I love that somebody wrote a book about this thing, so that's how you do to try it at night. But the book didn't mention that turns into a killer.
It mentioned the portrait that changes.
Yeah, it's not the most important part of this story, nor the legend of the bird egg. Like that was just not mentioned. Is the problem us? Like, are we gonna put out this episode and everyone's gonna be like, "Yeah, it just turns into a robotic killer"? What are you guys going on about? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't know. Just kind of seems like you would be mature enough to accept that.
Yeah, like it's a mature story.
What are you talking about,
guys? Like, listen, Duckfeed. Like, I mean, I'm getting sick of your immaturity. Like, first of all, you're dunking and eating that tiny French boy, and second, like, you don't understand a perfectly good, serviceable murder transformer egg. You know,
the tale as old as time.
Yeah, it is. It's a plot trope. There's a real like TV trope like bad egg, and it's just like this is whenever in a fiction a MacGuffin egg turns into an attack bird.
Man versus man versus self.
Yeah, man versus deadly art egg.
Yeah.
Like fuck, man.
All of this stuff, maybe the bird included, if the bird is supposed to symbolize something that I'm just too dense to see. I'm not willing to concede that at the moment, but it's possible. Like
someone, you can make a really shitty argument about, like, I can just, it's like the onset of technology and how it's going to change war or something. There's a lot of like super stretchy arguments you can make, and when the game does nothing to stretch its symbolism before this. Whereas, like, every person just represents the country that they're from in a very direct way. I will not settle for anything less than very direct symbolism of that bird.
But, like, it is doing so much to tie everything into World War I begins. This story ends with the beginning of World War I, you know, at both a micro and a macro level, right? In the way that everything kind of played out aboard this train. Like, it kind of seems to me that things would have worked out better for this as a story if they kept that as dramatic irony as opposed to like dragging everybody by the fucking necktie toward that conclusion.
Yeah.
Right. Like just, you know, like the story ends and it is left to us to understand that no matter what any of them do, World War I will begin because it is bigger than any of them and it is bigger than what is going on in this train. That would have been better to me than everything that they have done, robot murder egg included. You know, in order to reconcile those two things, like that, I think is one of the things that causes this game to rot in its last chapter.
I will say, you know, unequivocally that this damages the game quite a bit. Like the tone, and not just it, but also the, you know, bomb onward. Yeah. Right. Like the tone it is going for that is very special and unique. that sense of tragedy just feels really silly when it all piles up and ends with a train chase.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I don't know. That train chase was really dumb.
Yeah.
You know,
like,
the whole...
And I would say fighting on top of the train, kind of dumb. It's like they are working to hit, like, the cliches, or, like, they are marking time through a song that I didn't know that they were, like, getting through. You know,
yeah,
like, just be like, oh, like, all of a sudden we have to hit all of these hallmarks of a pulp story that takes place on a train, you know, from this time period. It's like, no, like, this intimate thing you had going on was way more interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Much more interesting. So, like, it's not, you know, one of the discussion thing that's come up on dispatches, you know, that we'll definitely do at some point.
Yeah.
Is, you know, the importance of endings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In games, that's of course very important. It's something that we have opinions about that leaked out, but we'll do a longer form discussion about it at some point. I can understand the argument both ways. This is definitely an exhibit in the endings matter category.
Well, especially for the genre, because it's a mystery.
It's a mystery. It's also everything I was left with after leaving the game. Like, is none of it's good.
Right.
Like, all of my impressions are comical or asinine.
Yeah.
And all of the stuff I liked, like, basically this game to me climaxes at the concert. That's great. I'm doing cool spy shit. There's that whole, like, social shield about things. Like, that's very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And makes, you know, takes clever advantage of the real time conceit. You know, really, really neat. And then after that, though, it really loses its place in a way that I did not expect from a game with this kind of prestige.
Right.
And it is always going to be, to me, the game with the big robotic attack bird plot, because it's so outsized that it doesn't erase anything good that it did. You know, I'm never like, oh, this washes anything out. There's no washing out in games. Like, good and bad exist at the same time. But it's just bigger. Yeah. Like, it moves. It's the furthest it goes in a direction is that direction. You know, it
doesn't overwrite anything that came before it, but it definitely superimposes.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So big bummer ending. Even though, again, very funny. Like, it's very funny. I got real joy out of it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I cannot imagine a Duckfeed future in which the robotic attack egg does not become a thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But sneaking in abject suffering material in the middle of this Watch Out for Fire, not in the middle, the last 5% of this Watch Out for Fireballs game was a real trick.
Yeah.
Mechner's trick. You know?
Are we sure, like, there wasn't some kind of, like, adaptation thing going on here? Like, a particular character died in the story and then somebody else started writing it?
I don't know. I don't know. Watch somebody, like, you know, get feedback on this and be like, oh, this is actually based on the, like, the jeweled phoenix of the Tsar, the actual murder egg that was made. Because I knew, like, people made clockwork birds and stuff. I knew
like, music boxes are, you know, like, you know, interesting and neat, but
if they can fly, though, I don't know.
It seems like I would have read about that.
I know. It's just like, yeah, I would have known about that. Like, man. Anywho. So that ends. Yeah, it's real silly ending. Good Lord, very funny ending, and that has been the Last Express. Do you have any other, like, wrap up stuff that we have not hit?
That we haven't hit. I mean, aside from, like, general summations, you know, I feel like if you've been on the ride, you know generally what I feel. Thinking about stuff that kind of carried this forward, you know, we hit a few of, like, the references. You know, Tacoma seems to borrow a lot from this. I would be real surprised if I get the feeling if we talked to Fulbright, if we talked to anybody there and said, like, hey, did the Last Express inform Tacoma, they would either say yes or they would say, oh yeah, like, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You know, it's not too much of a leap. What I would say, and I don't know, like, this is not, like, me recommending that we cover this, but, like, if you're looking for something that captures this, probably in a bit more of a regimented, easier to follow kind of way, that also is a bit of a period piece, Hotel Dusk, and then its sequel that was only released in Europe, The Last Window, capture this very well, where you are in a limited environment with a varied cast that you are investigating and learning from, and kind of resolving their own individual plots and seeing how they all tie together. That is something else that has done this, I think, in a much more accessible way. And as far as I can recall, doesn't have any murder eggs. I'm not saying that is a more important game than this, but like that is something that I couldn't help but think of as I was going through this.
Well, all the stuff, like there are a bunch of games that do similar things to this that I think are, not the problem.
Right.
With it, right? Like the idea of being, dealing with this cast of characters who have done crimes is good.
Yes.
In fiction. Like that is something that is good. It's been part of adventure games. Like there's a little bit of like the Colonel's Bequest.
Yeah.
In this, the like Laura Bow mysteries and stuff like that. Like there's other things that share this DNA in a way. What the reason why I don't actually I think I don't like this game very much. Like I liked parts of it quite a bit, but on the whole, I did not like playing it that much. In part because of that silliness, like it's just taking the big wet shit at the end, but also the fact that like investigation games, like I want to do more investigating. Like I like, obviously I do because they're some of my favorite games, but in terms of being a detective, I like the Gabriel Knight games a lot more.
Yeah.
I like dialogue trees. Like if I'm doing this, the fact that I couldn't tell anybody about the bomb drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Like that was a major problem with this story. It made me not make sense. Like, yes, it's an Easter egg and foreshadowing, but where's your sense of self-preservation?
Yeah.
Like it just ended up, the fact that this kept you at arm's length, but had such a set story you wanted to tell for like a game that is not linear, that you're not going to see everything. The actual correct path is so linear that it ended up just feeling bad when I had no possibility space or so little possibility space.
It's frustrating. You want to not make this argument because it feels like armchair designing or whatever, but like it's frustrating to look at what feels like misallocated resources.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it, where like a lot of the downsides to this mechanically have to do with the fact that like, oh, you just prioritize different things. Like you couldn't have dialogue trees because because that's just not what this game is about. You have decided that Kath is going to be this kind of person, and maybe that would have been too technically difficult to do. They're already accounting for so much non-linearity and being in different places and seeing different stuff, that adding more branches on top of that might not have been technically feasible, and it made an impressive product but not like actually a sufficient one.
Yeah, especially considering the technical the presentation things.
Yeah
Right. So there are shades of this where it's like, yes, this is also, some of that lack of movement or agency is similar to like Dragon Age versus Torment.
Yeah.
Speak, where like one of those things, because you have these production values, you cannot include as much dialogue. You don't have the kind of maneuverability as far as changing it and editing it and things like that. Like a game that does not have voice acting will typically, if not always, have a stronger script in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because you're nimble. You can constantly improve it throughout development.
Yeah, and you do lose things based on that. But this, because not only did they have to voice it, but they also, animated it. It wasn't like they could have a lot of different choices or options.
Right.
Because it'd be very expensive to add them.
Yeah.
So it didn't. The way that I was thinking about it, I was talking about on Twitter, is like one of those things where it's an interesting, really, really interesting experiment that I think ultimately was not worth doing. Like I wanted a more gamey version that dealt with this story and these performances and these specific actors and stuff up, 80% of the story, the part that's good. But without this conceit.
Right.
Like I didn't end up liking the conceit that much, and I did not like how the story ended.
Yeah.
In a way that damaged it for me. Even though I'm glad we played it, because I had played this, poked at this when I was younger, because it's a legendary PC game, but never actually like played it. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to, even if I did not love it.
Yeah. It's been fun to talk about. Like, I think that, when we open saying, hey, this is a real good candidate for the show, all of those reasons held. Right. This is a fascinating object, not unlike an egg that unfurls and murders you.
Yes. Yep. Fascinating egg. Will there be in Simpsons Hit and Run eggs?
Maybe.
There's a couple weird things
that the egg council guy got you too.
Yeah, exactly. The egg council guy transforms into a murder bot. So this is that is what we are doing next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Yes.
Next episode will be The Simpsons Hit and Run.
Mm-hmm.
After that will be Deus Ex Human Revolution. If you have anything to say about those games, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. If you have things to say about our games for December, which are Tyranny, we're doing 2 episodes on that, and Jade Empire, which will be our premium episode for that month, write in. Again, duckfeed.tv/contact. The deadline for each month's games responses is the 15th of that month.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and we will read those responses in our dispatch episodes.
Yeah.
If you want to, we've started working on the schedule for next year. Mm-hmm. If you want to support us and sponsor an episode, you can do so by going to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv. That not only sponsors an episode at a certain level, but you can get into the Slack, you can get early release, you get a bunch of bonus shows. Yeah. You can get a lot of things for that.
And we really inordinate amount of content.
Yep. And if that is, we're not here to tell you what $5 is worth to you. Mm-hmm. If that is difficult, feel free to save up.
Yes.
If you put aside $1.25 a month, you can patronize for 1 month at $5, get all of those premium episodes of Watch Out for Fireballs and Bonfireside Chat and Unfilmable and such, and then listen to them all and then unpatronize. That is fine with us.
Yeah.
And then I think that's probably about it.
Think so.
Yeah. So until next time, Cole, what should they watch out for?
They should watch out for the powder keg in the Balkans. It can't all be eggs.
Yeah, I guess it can't all be eggs. It's a good sign off. It can't all be eggs.